First item on the agenda is to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Brooke to approve the agenda and second by Mary. Any discussion about today's agenda? Hearing none, those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Cass, are you voting? Cass is online.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute myself when I said aye.
Okay, thank you. Item 2 on the agenda is the public comment. The board has a significant interest in maintaining the form of its meeting and expected that members of the public and the board will address each other with civility. The orderly process of the board meeting will not be interfered with or disrupted by public comment. Only individuals recognized by the board president will be allowed to speak. Comments by others are out of order. If disruptive, the individual causing the disruption may be asked to leave the board meeting. Abusive, disruptive, or defamatory comments will not be permitted. The state board's agenda is full, and I will place a maximum of 30 minutes for public comment. I'll give each speaker 5 minutes or 3 minutes if there are a large number of speakers. At the end of your allotted time, I'll ask you to conclude, and the board will move on to the next speaker. The department will not respond to public comment aside from requesting clarification. The department may place a topic raised in public comment on a future agenda. A topic from public comment that is not related to an item on today's agenda will not be addressed at today's meeting. We have public comment today.
If you wish to address the board, please use the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen. If you're calling in, press *9 to raise your hand. There appear to be no public comments.
Okay, hearing if there's no public comment, we'll move on to the director's report.
Thank you, President Robbins, Vice President Axiotis, and members of the board. Before we begin, I'd like to reiterate a statement by the department made yesterday, which reads, there are multiple reports of disturbing comments about the assassination of Charlie Kirk that were allegedly made by school personnel. Condoning political or any type of violence is reprehensible and has no place in Iowa education. Our educators are entrusted by families with the care and development of their children. Such behavior does not represent Iowa's dedicated teachers and should be rejected in the strongest possible terms. Local education leaders are charged with investigating these reports in accordance with their local school board policies and Iowa's standards of professional conduct and ethics. Before we begin, I'd also like to thank Superintendent of the Gilbert Community School District, Trujillo, for her and her leadership team for hosting the State Board of Education here at their high school today. Yesterday, the Gilbert team welcomed a few of us into their classrooms to learn more about their commitment to and realization of evidence-based math instruction. They shared their work to implement the Comprehensive Math Counts Act and how they are supporting math fluency and comprehension for all learners. We also, just over 3 weeks ago, released our spring 2025 assessment, or our ISASS results. As a reminder, ISASS is our state summative assessment and stands for the Iowa Statewide Assessment of Student Progress. And we've got some celebrations to share with you following the enactment of the landmark early literacy legislation in 2024, making comprehensive investments in evidence-based literacy instruction. Students who were in 3rd grade during the 23-24 school year showed impressive gains as 4th graders in the 24-25 school year, with proficiency increasing 11 percentage points. And since 2019, over the long term, ELA results also showed an 11 percentage point increase in grade 8. Overall math proficiency in high school grades continues to be much lower than that of earlier grade levels, with differences ranging between 4 to 12 percentage points lower in high school. Results do not show from last year change beyond 1 to 2 percentage points, reinforcing the need for the Math Counts Act passed in 2025. And since 2019, again, in the long term, math results showed a 5 percentage point increase in third grade, but the inverse in ninth grade, a 5 percentage point decrease. And of course, again, the data show that Iowa's investments in evidence-based literacy instruction are working for learners. And last winter, we set out to mirror those transformational structures in math through the historic and comprehensive Math Counts Act. In science, since the inclusion of science proficiency in Iowa's new unified accountability system, students in 10th grade experienced strong proficiency gains, with proficiency increasing 7 percentage points from last year. In the long term, again, since 2019, science results also showed 12 percentage point increases in both 5th and 8th grade. As a reminder, ELA and math are both tested in grades 3 through 11. Science are grades 5, 8, and 10. Jay is going to, Dr. Pennington is going to dig into these results further later on in our meeting, but they demonstrate how much instructional leadership across the state and accountability matter for our students. And again, we are so proud of our hardworking students and thankful to our educators and our families who made these exceptional improvements, both since last year and in the long term, a reality for Iowa's children. Digging into the division of pre-K through 12 learning, we've got a number of standards related updates. As always, the social studies standards revision follows the same 5-phase process, and we're currently in phase 3, which is the public comment phase. As a reminder, this includes regional public forums and an online public survey. The final of the 5 public forums was held in Council Bluffs this past Tuesday. Forums were also held in Des Moines, Dubuque, Marion, and Sioux City. And then the online public comment survey is available through September 25th. September 14th is also the deadline for individuals to apply to serve on the second team, also called the review team, which reviews all public comments made on the draft standards. And again, educators, administrators, content specialists, higher education representatives, families, parents, and community partners are all encouraged to apply to serve on that review team. We are also seeking individuals to serve on the first review team, also called the revision team, to review and make recommendations on the proposed updates to the Iowa Quality Preschool Program standards. Those standards provide a blueprint for high quality preschool programs across the state. And as always, those Iowa Quality Preschool Program standards will follow the same 5-phase process. The deadline for application to that first team, the review team, is on September 26th. And then finally, in the division of pre-K through 12 learning, we were excited to celebrate the governor's signing of the new STEM executive order at STEM Day at the fair. And the department at that time also launched nominations for the 2026 Iowa STEM Teacher of the Year Award. That was about 4 weeks ago, and now in its 12th year, the Iowa STEM Teacher Award, through our partnership with Google, recognizes one full-time licensed pre-K through 12 teacher from each of Iowa's 6 STEM regions, and nominations are accepted through October 22nd. Within the Division of Teacher Quality and Innovation, we announced another round of the Teachers Accelerating Learning Grant Competition. We have 4 successful pilots currently in implementation across IKM Manning, Okoboji, Tri-Center, and Van Meter. And again, have a new round of Teachers Accelerating Learning Grants available for application. This program supports school districts in developing systems to identify and recognize learning teachers who significantly accelerate student learning. And the second round of grants implements multiple components of educator feedback on the pilot grants, including an increase in the percentage of teachers who are eligible and an increase in the supplemental pay amounts that are available to educators. So based on educator feedback, eligibility is expanded to 25% of teachers compared to 10% in the pilot. And then supplemental pay amounts are also increased up to $15,000 per educator compared to $2,500 in the pilot. And the application deadline for that grant is September 19th. Shifting into the Division of Special Education, the Restored Division has launched 3 new professional learning networks. As a reminder, there's one focused on supporting new special education teachers. There is one network focused on supporting new special education administrators. And then there are regionally based networks supporting all administrators with special education responsibilities, all launching this school year. The Special Education Policy and Practice webinar series is also been announced for its 2nd year. On Wednesday, we had a session using Achieve to support general supervision and providing content on high quality prior written notices. These webinars occur the 2nd Wednesday of the month, September through June. And topics will include accessible educational materials and assistive technology on a student's IEP, secondary transition with work-based learning content and 4+ programming, out-of-state and residential placements, behavior and discipline, connecting alternate assessments of the DLM in Iowa to instruction and licensure, extended school year, and much, much more. All of the recordings for the webinar series in our 24-25 school year series are available on our website, and the registration and all the materials supporting the 25-26 series are also on our website on the Policy and Practice webinar page. Within the Division of Higher Education, we recently had the opportunity to recognize school for FAFSA completion success. As you all know, the Course to College program is open to all Iowa high schools each year, providing support and resources for schools to assist all students in preparing and accessing their chosen post-secondary pathway. Partner schools are encouraged to set a FAFSA completion goal, and this year we were able to recognize 71 schools for meeting those goals in the 24-25 school year. There were 28 high schools that were determined schools of excellence that attained 70% or greater FAFSA completion. And then there were 43 high schools that were designated schools of achievement who met or exceeded their FAFSA completion goal. Moulton Udell High School achieved a FAFSA completion rate of 89%, which was 49 percentage points higher than the prior year. Keota High School and Tri-County Junior and Senior High had completion rates of 88 and 86% respectively, and all of the schools that were recognized are shared on our website. Last month, we were also excited to issue a press release announcing the department's receipt of nearly $500,000 in competitive grants, federal funding for the AmeriCorps Course to College program through the Volunteer Iowa Commission. This grant will fund and expand Iowa's Course to College statewide post-secondary education coaching program, which has supported high school and college students in accessing and succeeding in post-secondary education since 2017. Specifically, it supports more than 80 AmeriCorps members serving as student leaders and post-secondary success coaches, as well as high school counselors serving as summer transition associates over the summer months, ensuring students are supported year-round. Last month, we also awarded about $500,000 in competitive grants to 15 Iowa school districts focused on aligning their CTE programs to student attainment of an industry recognized credential through the Credentials to Careers grant program that now totals over $3.5 million awarded to 50 school districts to support high schoolers in earning credentials with labor market value. And then we recently launched a new competitive grant called Credentials to Computer Science Careers. And $850,000 is available to Iowa school districts and accredited non-public schools to align their computer science programs with the attainment of an in-demand technology credential, an industry recognized credential. And the deadline for application is September 30th. And then finally, in the Division of Higher Education, the department, in partnership with Iowa Workforce Development, launched its second year series of the work-based learning webinars, and based on the positive feedback and demand from last year, this series is designed to showcase some of the most proven programs and approaches to expanding student access to and attainment of work-based learning experiences in our most in-demand industries. Topics include growing internship programs, increasing IRC access and attainment, and then industry-specific sessions, including ones that are focused on healthcare and advanced manufacturing talent pipelines. Our next webinar is September 16th, and again, all recordings, all supplemental resources and materials are available on our website on the Career Connected Learning webpage. And then finally, to close out our update, in addition to our monthly superintendent's meetings, for the third year, I'm attending all regional superintendent's meetings in person. Last week, we attended Green Hills and Central Rivers. This week, Great Prairie. And then in October, Grant Wood, Mississippi Bend, and Heartland. And when we were in Green Hills, we had the opportunity to visit Atlantic High School, joining Superintendent Beth Johnson and Principal Heather McKay. The visit focused on work-based learning experience and IRC attainment, and we got to meet with students who were pursuing welding and building trades, aviation, journalism, and so much more. We also learned about the ways that the district is growing their strong teacher pipeline through multiple pathways to licensure. Science teachers with bachelor's degrees in science-related fields had taken advantage of the teacher intern program in partnership with Morningside University to make the career change to education possible. And an expert paraeducator was becoming a special education teacher with the district support. When we were in Central Rivers, we had the opportunity to visit Union Community School District's elementary school, joining Superintendent John Howard, Principal Derek Weber, and Curriculum Director Corindy Stokes, and several of their elementary teachers to learn more about their strong focus on evidence-based literacy instruction aligned to the science of reading. The district is empowering teachers by participating in the statewide Letters Professional Development opportunities with the goal of strengthening early literacy skills and improving reading proficiency while narrowing achievement gaps experienced by students. And then just Wednesday, after being with the Great Prairie superintendents, we visited Centerville High School to learn more about their strong focus on attendance and their collective work to reduce chronic absenteeism. Students gave us a tour of their school, and educators shared their work to deepen partnerships with students and families and to remove and reduce barriers to attendance. Those efforts show in their double-digit decrease and their chronic absenteeism rate in just 1 year. And then recently, the Community College Advisory Committee has met. The Board of Educational Examiners is meeting today. The Iowa Dyslexia Board has recently met. The Iowa College Aid Board of Commissioners met last week. And then the House File 835 Healthcare Related Training for School Personnel Work Group also met last week. Coming up, we have the 2025 Iowa STEM Summit on October 17th. This is going to be a full-day event bringing together educators, industry leaders, policymakers, and STEM stakeholders from across the state to explore innovative strategies and share best practices and hear from leaders who are advancing STEM education and the technologies that support it. Registration for this summit is required, and it is open through October 9th. And then finally, the SBRC, the School Budget Review Committee hearing, is October 14th. And the next Special Education Advisory Panel is being held on October 17th. And with that, I welcome any questions or comments the board may have on the department's report.
Questions or comments for our director?
I have a question about this preschool. So you mentioned standards for preschool. Are there any grants or anything that the department has to help, I guess, preschools in different school districts around Iowa? Can they apply for anything, or is that just like a local kind of thing that they would have to go through?
There are multiple opportunities. The statewide voluntary preschool program administered by the Bureau of Early Childhood is probably the main opportunity that you're thinking of. And it may be helpful to have a presentation alongside the presentation of those standards on the multiple ways in which preschool is supported across our state.
Okay, great.
I have a question on the ISAP. In my last district I served, we also see that dip in ninth grade, and we're trying to see what the correlation is, but I didn't know at the state level if it's due to curriculum changes, teaching and learning, multiple things. Have we kind of zeroed in on that?
It has definitely been a focus and in the revised, so now in their second year of implementation math standards, you see a strong focus on completion of Algebra 1 by the end of ninth grade, as well as a strong focus on the rigor and specificity of our high school standards.
Good. And then just one more, since down at Atlantic, has there been discussion of renewing that TPR dollars?
Yeah.
Or
So that program is administered by Iowa Workforce Development. It has totaled well over, I believe, a $49 million investment across about 130 school districts. And there was an initial round of grants and then a subsequent round supporting new applications. Additional grant opportunities have not been announced at this time.
thanks.
Yes, sir.
Anything else? All right, we do have Cassandra Halls online for the Community College Advisory Committee update. Cassandra, can you hear us?
Yes, President Robbins, I can hear you all just fine, and I'm so sorry that I'm not able to be there in person today. So just to provide a quick update of the work of the Community College Advisory Committee, we last met on Wednesday, August 6th, and we're excited to welcome a new member. Joel Peterson, the president of NIAC, has joined our group, replacing President Thompson from Indian Hills Community College. And we are excited to welcome State Board Member Todd Abrahamson, who will be joining the board or the Community College Advisory Committee as our second board member. I'm anticipating starting in October. At our meeting on August 6th, we continued our discussion on K-12 connectedness, specifically our statewide goals and measuring success when it comes to concurrent education. We talked specifically about the data that we need to evaluate the quality of our concurrent enrollment and making sure that we have a way to understand that the system is working. We also talked about some policy, specifically HF 2545, which addresses graduation requirements, along with touching on some potential policy questions just in general. Then we turned our focus to what critical information we need in order to be prepared for our thorough discussion of the Perkins State Plan and the impact of the recent changes. The Perkins State Plan will be the focus of our discussion of our next meeting, which is scheduled for Wednesday, October 15th from 10 a.m. to noon. And that meeting will be in person at the Department of Education. Just as a reminder, the results and recommendation from this discussion will be presented at the December State Board meeting. And that's all from Community College Advisory.
Any questions for Cass? Hearing none. Thank you, Cass. Appreciate it.
You bet.
All right. Item 3 on the agenda is the consent agenda, which includes the meeting minutes from July 16th, 2025.
I'll move approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Moved by Brian and second by Abe. Any further questions about the consent agenda? Hearing none, those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Opposed, same sign. Motion's carried. The consent agenda is approved. Moving on to item 4, we have the appeal of Dallas Center Grimes Community School District concerning materials.
May it please the board, Thomas Mays, General Counsel for the department. I'm providing a brief procedural overview and then turning this over to the parties and counsel who tried the case before the administrative law judge. So your authority to hear this matter is Iowa Code Chapter 290, which allows the state board to review decisions of an aggrieved parent of a school board decision. The school board decision, the appeal time is 30 days. There was a timely appeal from a school board decision. There was a contested case before Judge Rachel Morgan. Her proposed decision is in your packet, as well as the written arguments of parties and counsel. There was a timely appeal of Judge Morgan's proposed decision, so this matter is properly before you. The scope of review of your review of the school board's decision is for use of discretion. That is black letter law. It's set out on pages 4 and 5 of Judge Morgan's proposed decision. You are not required to give her decision any deference. You make conclusions of law anew. However, if you find that her proposed decision is well reasoned and has the power to persuade, you adopt it and you ultimately reach the same conclusions. But it's not like in other forums where it's presumptively correct. You start anew, but in starting anew, you give deference to the decision of the Dallas Center Grimes School District's Board of Directors. So with that, the scheduling order provided a period of oral argument, which I'm going to yield to parties and counsel who will introduce themselves. I'm going to ask them to join in a moment, and 10 minutes for the appellant, which is inclusive of any questions that you may ask. 10 minutes for the appellee, inclusive of any questions you may ask. 5 minutes for the appellant to provide rebuttal. And then deliberation in open session unless there's a motion to go into closed session. Historically, this board has not done its deliberations in closed session unless it was a student-specific expulsion. So with that, I'm going to ask the parties to come up. I think procedurally it would be easier if both appellants representatives and appellees representatives were at the table at the same time. Rather than bouncing back and forth. And with that, I will allow some time for transition for them to take their seats. Assistant Attorney General Kevin Protzman, who is here also, he and I will be able to answer any questions that you might have in the course of your deliberation after conclusion of oral argument. So I will invite the parties to take their seats and introduce themselves. And then President Robbins, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Welcome. Would you like to introduce yourselves, please?
Shelley Flockhart of the Dallas Center Grimes School District.
Okay.
Jeff Wolf, I'm an attorney at Olive Company Law Firm, and I represent Dallas Center Grimes Community School District.
Okay, welcome. You may begin.
Hey, first, thank you, members of the State Board of Education, for the opportunity to present this appeal. My name is Shelley Flockhart, and I am here to challenge the proposed decision affirming Dallas Center Grimes Community School District refusal to fully review the 2 units in the English 2 curriculum. This appeal seeks to vacate or modify the decision due to clear abuse of discretion by the local school board. I'll outline the key legal errors in approximately 6 minutes. I also want to say that the process was flawed from the very beginning. It did not meet my original complaint or concerns. So first, the proposed decision misinterprets and misapplies Iowa Code 279.77, which is Senate File 496, creating a loophole that evades meaningful curriculum review. Last fall, we requested a comprehensive review of units 2 and 3, not mere removal of books, because it was the material as a whole, and it promoted divisive concepts like critical race theory and portrayed America as inherently racist and broken. Yet the district limited the review to 3 core novels: American Born Chinese, I Was Their American Dream, This Is My America, dismissing supplemental material, which was songs, poems, videos, articles, book excerpts, as teacher chosen and not, quote, instructional material. The supplemental materials in this case are not just 1 or 2 items. Let me remind you of those items. American Born Chinese, which is a book. I Was Their American Dream, book. Why the American Dream is Unrecognizable Today, article. Just Mercy, the movie. This Is My America, book on and with heavy discussion. An excerpt from Michelle Obama's book. The Rose That Grew from Concrete, a poem by Tupac. On the Hill I Climb, poem by Amanda Foreman. Juneteenth, an article, American Dream Song That Declares the American Dream is Broken by MTKO. To use to establish their essay statement. And there are songs added with the same message of struggle. The DCG librarian presents a book talk to the students and shares more books on challenges in America, racism, and social justice. The material was purposely paired with the core material to build upon one main funnel thought, leaving no room for them in the perspective. The book that the class spends the majority of time on is This Is My America by Kim Johnson. Johnson urges educators to pair her book with other materials to solidify concepts of social justice and current racism. Kim is a known activist and she trains activists. In educator training and several podcasts, Johnson states that her reason for writing the book was to create more activists. So this leaves the same question: where is the balance? If all the material builds on the same exact critical concept or theory, then how can any educator claim there's balance? The district contends that curricular balance can be achieved solely through classroom discussion, yet it incorporates more supplementary materials presenting opposing, such as narratives highlighting America's remarkable progress in ensuring limitless opportunities for achieving the American dream for all. The district continues to argue the definition of material. Their narrow reading ignores Senate File 496 intent, subject to requires districts to establish process for reviewing instructional materials used in classrooms. But the decision admits these units integrate other articles and resources to explore themes like identity, race, and social justice. Supplemental materials aren't optional,
Just a
they're
second.
essential.
We'll give you a little break here.
Thanks.
Is that the final bells that are ringing?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
By classifying them as non-core, the district circumvents oversight, compliance, its evasion. The state board must recognize that the curriculum review under Senate File 496 demands a holistic assessment, not piecemeal dissection. A reasonable person, Pursuit City Community District versus Iowa Department of Education could not conclude a fragmented process was sufficient. Second, the limitation directly violates Iowa Code 279.74, which is House File 802, which prohibits any curriculum from teaching, advocating, or promoting specific defined concepts such as stereotyping, scapegoating. House File 802 scope is broad and applies to any program, curriculum, test, survey, questionnaire, promoting, or instructing, not just for texts. The superintendent has affirmed duty under 279.74 to ensure compliance across the entire curriculum. Here, the reconsideration committee only evaluated the novels for 802, House File 802, despite evidence that Unit 2 explores cultural identity through other resources, and Unit 3 fosters discussion on biases and stereotypes. Without reviewing the full package, there's no evidence that curriculum complies. Third, the district's actions breach Board Policy 60309, which requires controversial issues to be fairly presented with all sides discussed, free from any partisan advocacy. Policy 60309 mandates instructors to provide full and fair opportunity for students to consider multiple viewpoints on issues like political philosophies without promoting selfish propaganda. Units 2 and 3 delve into race, identity, social justice, undeniably controversial, yet the review ignored supplements skewed toward one perspective lacking balance. The review committee found the novels valuable for cultural exposure, but that's irrelevant if the full unit promotes imbalance. By not applying policy 60309 to all materials, the board failed its delegation under policy 60201 and policy 60501, where curriculum development and material must align with fairness. No reasonable board could affirm without evidence of balanced presentation. And finally, fourth, the confidentiality breach under Iowa Code 27977 tainted the process instructing bias or introducing bias. Even if not strictly a removal request, the spirit of the law protects requesters from public exposure to ensure impartial review. In conclusion, the school board abuses its discretion by prioritizing form over substance, allowing non-compliance with Senate File 496, House File 802, and Policy 60309. My son has suffered concrete harm, exclusion from discussions, exposure to unlawful material after my request for non-exposure, and transfer to online learning. I request the state board to vacate the decision, remand for full review of all materials, and ensure Iowa's law protects balance, lawful education. And I thank you, and I welcome questions.
Questions for Ms. Flockhart? Ms. Flockhart, did you have a chance to look at the supplementary materials that were used in the class?
Just a week ago, I did actually.
And what was your thoughts as you were reviewing the supplemental materials?
There's no balance.
Can you kind of categorize or explain that a little bit further?
Yeah, it's all funneling into one thought, which House File 802 would prohibit. So I mean that it's pretty cut and dry, I think.
And how many is this English too? Is this a semester class or a year-long class or?
Semester.
Okay, and there are how many units in it? There are 4 units in that?
I believe there were 6, now there's 4. I believe.
Other questions for Ms. Flockhart?
Ms. Flockhart, what's your response to the proposed decision when it says, in accordance with this legal framework, the reconsideration committee properly reviewed only the materials that were part of the district's core curriculum and not supplemental material?
The board did not even read the books. The board only reviewed whether or not the process was handled correctly. So the board has not reviewed any of the material.
Thank you.
Other questions for Ms. Flockhart? Thank you. You may proceed.
Good morning, members of the state board. My name is Jasmine Polk, and I'm an attorney at Allers & Cooney Law Firm, representing the respondent, the Dallas St. Grimes Community School District. This case is not about whether the district selected the right books or whether its curriculum is balanced. This case is about process. whether the district followed the law, adhered to its policies, and made reasonable decisions when a parent raised concerns about curriculum. And the record clearly shows the district did exactly that. A parent submitted a reconsideration request. The district convened a committee which carefully reviewed the challenge text. The superintendent upheld the committee's recommendation. The board then decided to hear the appeal, weigh the record, and affirm the decision. Finally, Administrative Law Judge Rachel Morgan reviewed the entire matter and concluded there was no abuse of discretion. And this board may only reverse or modify a finding of fact by the judge if the preponderance of the evidence supports such a determination. And the board may only reverse or modify any conclusion of law found only in error. The findings of facts by Judge Morgan are fully supported by the evidence, and the conclusions of law are correct. At every stage, the district followed the law, board policy, and acted in good faith. And today, we respectfully request this board affirm Judge Morgan's proposed decision. First, appellant argues that every poem, handout, or article shown in class subject to review under this process, but that is not what Iowa law says. Senate File 496, which is codified at chapter 279-77, creates two distinct processes for parents. Subsection 1A allows a parent to request removal of any educational material. So that's books, articles, poems, with confidentiality protections for that parent's identity. But subsection 2 permits curricular review for student exemption, but it limits this review to just core instructional materials. Those are textbooks or other required texts. And here, the appellant did not request removal. In fact, she stated to the district and on the record, and even here today, that she was not seeking a book ban or removal. Instead, she asked to review the curriculum as a whole, and she asked to add certain materials to provide balance to the curriculum. And that means her request properly fell under subsection 2. And as a result, the district correctly limited this process to the 3 textbooks that were challenged. Those were the only instructional core materials under the definition in the statute. So poems, articles, other supplemental materials are part of lesson planning, and they fall outside of this process under subsection 2. So the committee therefore acted lawfully in limiting its review to those 3 textbooks. And the committee read them in full. They discussed them thoroughly and determined they were appropriate. And the superintendent upheld that decision, and the board affirmed. And Judge Morgan found no abuse of discretion, and this board should affirm that finding. Appellant also claims that the district violated confidentiality protections, but the law is clear on that. Subsection 4 requires confidentiality only when a parent requests removal under subsection 1A. And again, that was not the case here. No removal was sought, so her identity was not legally required to remain confidential, and yet the district still went to great lengths to protect her identity and support her through this process. For example, when concerns arose that her name had been seen by the first committee, the district disbanded that committee and convened a new one with redacted documents. The appellant was also offered an opportunity to remain anonymous to the second committee by submitting only written statements, but she chose to appear in person. Her name was also redacted in response to a public records request that the district received. And she provides no evidence that the district was part of leaking her name to the public, and she provides no evidence that disclosure of her identity affected the board's or the committee's decisions. Even if her name was disclosed to the committee, the board, or the public, the district acted in good faith and reviewed her request based on the merits and not in regard to who she is. Judge Morgan found no abuse of discretion here, and this board should approve and affirm that finding. Next, it's important to understand the board's role under policy and the division of roles. So board policy delegates curriculum decisions to the superintendent and certified staff. And policy 605.3 assigns reconsideration requests to a committee that is selected by the superintendent and approved by the board. And this committee reviews the materials and makes the recommendation to the superintendent, who then issues a decision. And that decision may be appealed to the board, and the board gets to decide whether to hear the appeal or not. And if they decide to hear the appeal, the board's role is oversight, not direct curricular review. Policy only requires the board to affirm, modify, or reverse the superintendent's decision. It does not require board members to independently read or evaluate instructional text. That was delegated to the committee. So neither Senate File 496, Iowa Code Section 279 imposes this duty on the board, and House File 802 places responsibility for compliance on the superintendent, not the board. So here, the committee complied with policy 605.3. It read and evaluated the three texts in full, considered public input, expert testimony, and reviewed for alignment with district standards, House File 802. And the appellant was allowed to attend these meetings. It gave her input. The superintendent reviewed the committee's findings and issued a decision consistent with the recommendation. And although not required, the board decided to hear the appeal, reviewed the record, and considered her arguments at its special meeting in April. And it was based on that record that the board acted well within its discretion in affirming the superintendent's decision. And Judge Morgan found no abuse of discretion here, and this board should affirm that finding. Lastly, appellant points to House File 802, and I have 2 points here. First, jurisdiction. Iowa Code Section 290 limits this board to reviewing local board decisions. It does not authorize this board to evaluate whether curriculum complies with House File 802. Judge Morgan correctly declined to reach that issue, and so should this board. And second, even if we looked at House File 802, the curriculum complies. House File 802 expressly allows teaching for slavery, racism, discrimination as part of a broader academic instruction, and the American Dream Unit here did exactly that. It presents themes and history for discussion. It does not promote or encourage prohibited concepts. Appellant also asserts House File 802 requires balance in the curriculum, but the statute does not impose any such requirement. In fact, the word balance does not appear anywhere in Senate File or House File 802, excuse me. Board policy does require controversial issues to be balanced in terms of different views, but as stated in our hearing, and it's in the record, the district reviews the curriculum for balance as a whole, not based unit by unit, and balance is achieved through student discussions. So the district's curriculum and the review of the curriculum fully comply with these policies and legal requirements, including House File 802. And members of the board, this case is not about the textbooks. It's not even about House File 802. It's about the integrity of the reconsideration process of the policy and law. And here the district applied the law, followed board policy, and went above and beyond to address appellant's concerns. And the district does not claim perfection in handling its policies or their implementation. This was the first time the district went through this reconsideration process, but it assured that appellant was fully heard on her concern. 3 challenge textbooks were carefully reviewed and discussed publicly by an unbiased committee of educators, librarians, community members, and reasonable decisions were made by the committee, the superintendent, and the board. And the appellant may disagree with the outcome, but disagreement is not evidence of abuse of discretion or error in following the law. Judge Morgan concluded correctly that no abuse of discretion occurred here. And under the law, this board can only reverse or modify that fact if the preponderance of the evidence supports that determination, or you may reverse or modify the conclusion of law if there is an error in law. But again, the record shows that Judge Morgan's decision is supported by the evidence, and her conclusions of law were sound and not in error. For these reasons, on behalf of the Dallas Center Grimes Community School District, I respectfully request this board to affirm Judge Morgan's proposed decision. Thank you.
Questions? I've read quite a bit about this case and even listened to the auditory PLJ. And it's very interesting. Would you say that the parents' request to review was reasonable?
Yes, I mean, the law allows parents to request that. And there is a board policy implemented and enacted by the board to allow that process. And parents, we can convene this committee and review it for appropriateness. So the district's position is not that, you know, she shouldn't have requested to review. It's just that in our review, we followed the law, and the committee decided that it was appropriate and decided to keep the books in the curriculum. And so that there was just no abuse of discretion in following the law or the policy.
We're at the end of our 10 minutes. Ms. Lockhart.
First, I would like to state that removal of any of the material or books would happen if a full review was done of all of it together. Then that decision could be made. So I felt like I did not have to come forward saying, yep, you need to remove this book or that book. A thorough review would take care of that. So my final statement is thank you for the opportunity to deliver my final counter argument, and my intent throughout the process has been singular: to ensure an education of excellence in the Dallas Center Grimes School District. As promised to parents, and I've always sought collaboration, not conflict, open to dialogue and solutions. But when solutions weren't offered, I followed the process urged by the administration, the board president, Department of Education, the Ombudsman Office. Hundreds of hours of research and writing led to here. Yet we've never substantially discussed the violations of law or policy or the material itself. The Reconsideration Committee narrowly reviewed only the novels for House File 802 compliance, ignoring how the full English 2 unit, including discussion and resources, might act upon harmful stereotypes. This constitutes an abuse of discretion, as the board affirmed compliance without evidence. The entire curriculum adheres to the law. Legally, this fails the standard of rationale basis and evidentiary support required under Iowa law and administrative review. The material fosters division, shame, victimization, and heightened racism. By training students to view everything through the lens of skin color, it reverses progress. CRT remains theory, not fact. Yet here, it's illegally embedded without balance. I urge the board to mandate a full audit of last year's and this year's 2 English 2 units, uphold the law's intent, not exploit loopholes. As for harm, the law applies universally, not just upon proven damage. Under Article 1, Section 1 of the Iowa Constitution, my son's person and rights are to be protected from harm. The educator knowingly circumvented House File 802 by exposing my son to 2 divisive concepts post opt-out, including a worksheet funneling thoughts like being white made you extra special. When I raised this concern with the principal, the only alternatives were switching class, not compliance, or online isolation, denying him of the robust peer dialogue and classroom experience that I had. As a taxpayer and mother, my hope is for him to have that same enriching experience. The isolation was direct harm, violating parental rights and equal protection. I'm committed to improvement, serving on recruiting and retention for my district. But parental involvement has been shamed. Curriculum is hidden, books don't come home, access requires meetings, which brings me to the question for the entire state: what direction are we going? Without accountability, this is like the fox guarding the hen house, enriching attorneys while evading Governor Reynolds' leadership. Is this a coordinated rebellion? As far as the current material, imagine instilling fear in teens of segregation in Iowa, a state that never allowed slavery, or shaming them to racism they've never harbored. Teaching past mistakes as current realities reverses progress, making skin color a divisive obsession rather than irrelevant, like hair color. I do hair. We label everyone as a racist, and accountability vanishes. Imagine pushing social justice so far to have teens fear law enforcement. These are the very reasons families leave public school. This isn't about policy, it's about unlawful material and violations. Director Snow, I await your comments. Our district can and must do better. I still absolutely love our school district. This isn't a me against public school. This is me wanting to fight for public school. Representative Holt, who wrote House File 802, explained the intent of the law and where the violation stands. Representative Gil.
You'll need to wrap up.
Okay. We had several legislators that spoke on this exact topic, and they all saw a violation. One last very important thing. Charlie Kirk quote, "America is not just a country. It is an idea, a creed, a dream. America is the belief that all men and women are created equal, with God-given rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." And then I'll end.
Thank you. Yep. Thomas, we move into deliberation.
Yes, I'm going to give a little bit of your framework after oral argument. Under code section 256(7), which are introduced subsection 6. You're to hear appeal to the person that agreed to that decision to the board of directors in which you act. You may review the record, shall review the proposed decision of the administrative law judge. And you may, after your deliberation, confirm, modify, or vacate that decision, or direct the hearing before the director, which in this case would be a hearing before the administrative law judge. So with that background.
Can you repeat that last?
Direct review.
Okay.
Which would be in front of the ALJ.
All right. Okay. So our duty as a state board is, and correct me if I'm wrong, is to review the decision of the school board.
Review the decision of the school board. Ultimately review the decision of the school board, or procedurally review the decision of the proposed decision of the administrative law judge.
Okay. Members of the board, what are your thoughts?
I'll go. Thank you for both of your presentations. Appreciate that. So we have this appeal of units 2 and 3 of the English Roman numeral 2 curriculum. And it was narrowed to the 2 graphic novels and the one novel. You know, I've read through the opinions several times. I've read the arguments. I think we're presented with some difficult questions. You've made some good points, Ms. Flockhart. However, we are also subject to provisions of Iowa law. I believe you have standing. ALJ recognized that to make your concerns known and to appeal them. But when I don't really see evidence in the record about what exactly there was in the record that made it appear that the Dallas Grimes was promoting or allowing or advancing the positions that Ms. Lockhart claims. I believe that the process was followed according to the code sections cited in the ALJ's proposed decision. I do not think there was an abuse of discretion. But my mind is open to listen to other board members.
I have a question, Thomas. So if we, uphold the ALJ's decision, then I guess procedurally, then what would Flockart's like next move be, I guess? I mean, would that be in the end of it, or is there?
There is in chapter 6 the possibility for petition for hearing or for court or in court, judicial review in state district court. Either the county principal place of business, one of the parties, or in the state government. And there's a fairly short window to do that, measured in days rather than months. But those are the two options. Both require a short term, either a petition for rehearing. There's a set of rules for that. It's discretionary versus required. You can decide whether or not to even grant rehearing and then violations for what grounds. But at the end of the day, once they have exhausted, once the parties have exhausted their administrative remedies, petition for judicial review of this board's final agency action in district court.
Yeah, I listened to the recording and everything, and first off, thanks for presenting your sides, and I know this is difficult, and I see both views here. And I kept going back and forth. And when you look at everything, and I'm not an expert in law, I'm a former superintendent. And it comes down to the process. And that's where I came back to, where the district did follow their policies in the process. But I also see your concerns. And I would ask, and I don't know, Thomas, or how this works, that legislators need to go back and review this bill, because balance came up a lot. And Representative Holt just explained in the tape that, you know, people should realize, even though the word balance isn't in there, you should come to the conclusion that it is. Well, that's difficult. So I think they need to go back and review their bill, because I see where you're standing from, and because this will continue. And that's just my opinion, because there are gray areas within this law. So I came back, I'll cut it short, that on the process for the district, they did follow their policies, and so I see, I don't know if that helps, but I just think because this is so new in the law, that it needs to be reviewed again.
I absolutely agree with you. I think that in looking at Iowa Code Chapter 279.77, I mean, there's no mention of balance, and you keep on talking about balance, but it's not in the law. So, I mean, you say it's the law, but it's not. Sorry, but it's not. So, I think that going back to your legislators and saying that, you know, so that might have been the intent, and I'm not saying that you're wrong. I mean, I think that's a really great point. But it needs to be in there if school districts are to follow it, and to know that's what the intention was. So maybe they need to go back and modify that. And then, I mean, yeah, I mean, I think that Dallison and Grimes, I mean, I don't think that there's anything in here that would show that they abuse their discretion, or that they, you know, that they didn't follow their policies. At least the way the law is written. They didn't follow the law, so I would agree.
I actually agree as well, and thank you both for being here. Very sensitive to the concerns that you've raised. But I don't find the school board or I think that everything was followed appropriately. And I do agree with all three of my colleagues' statements that I think this should go back to legislators. And they need to understand that this is how it was playing out in your school district, and how your son and how you reviewed this material. But unfortunately, we have the rules that we have to follow as well. And to me, I think the school board and the administrative law judge, I would uphold their decision.
Thank you for your comments. I struggle with this case from the standpoint is I think that that Ms. Flockhart has some legitimate concerns. But I don't know how grounded those concerns are. I'm not in that class. I don't know what that discussion entails. Perhaps if we had some information that as a result of being in the class, these students were convinced or not convinced or whatever, but we don't have that information because that's really the proof of is there balance legally or written or implied. And this isn't a recommendation coming from the board, but I just wonder out loud if Dallas Senator Grimes they followed everything they did according to the law and should not be penalized for doing so or found guilty of not doing so. I have a hard time telling legislators what they should or should not do. That's not our job, but it does get a little confusing for me where for reviewing the curriculum and all we're looking at is just the 3 core books and ignoring or not considering all the other supplemental materials that go into a class. To me, that's concerning where I took it, maybe I took it wrong, where if Ms. Flockhart would have requested the books be removed, then the other materials would have brought into play. But she wasn't requesting that. She was requesting balance, which I think every parent would want balance. But that's not the nature of our decision, and that's where I struggle with that a little bit as well. But I understand the role that we play. Our role is to take into account did the Dallas Senator Grimes School Board act appropriately. I would concur, given all the insights that they did follow the law and they did act accordingly with the law. And maybe the law is flawed, maybe the process as far as what to be reviewed or not to review is flawed, but they followed what they, in my eyes, and I think in other people's eyes, they did follow the law. Other comments from board members? Thomas?
I'm just checking to see if board member all set for comment or a question.
Thank you. Cassandra?
I don't have anything to add to the discussion that those of you at the table have shared. I think your sentiment matches mine as well.
I have one final comment. You know, my view, and I think all that we can look at are the facts and law in the record of this case, and that's all that matters. I don't think it's our place to speculate about what the decision might have been if the law was different. We don't have that luxury.
I agree.
So I that's just where we are.
Yeah.
Other discussion from board members?
I would move that we affirm the ALJ proposed decision.
Second.
It's been moved and second, moved by Brian, second by Abe to affirm the decision. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Do we need a roll call, Thomas? Okay. Those opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. The decision is affirmed by this board. Thank you. We will take a 10-minute break. It's 10:11, 10:21. We'll be back. All right, we'll transition back to the meeting. He should be coming in. We have get director or we'll get attorney Thomas. He left the room too. All right. I thought he was sitting right there. We'll get him seated. They'll be back in.
So did we start?
We'll wait. Thomas will be leading the
Okay.
discussion, so.
Yeah.
Thomas, you ready? On agenda item number 5, rules.
The hat comes back on now that we can be a little bit less formal. Thomas Mays, rules coordinator for the department, but before we begin, I'd like to mention that the discussion in the last agenda item about legislative action. I probably needed a trigger warning because I worked very, very hard on an appeal to the state board when I was at Legal Services. Worked very, very hard and got a favorable decision for my client in the very next General Assembly. It was like, oh, that was precious, but no, we're rewriting the statute. There you go. So that is always the prerogative of the General Assembly. So the first rule on your agenda, item 5A, is vaccine exemption communications. This is to implement House File 299. The structure of the proposed rulemaking would be incorporating by reference. So specific requirements both in the school health chapter for public and non-public public school districts and non-public schools. And then a reference in chapter 2162 to community colleges in their student services. So this incorporates the requirement by statute that whenever there's a communication about vaccine requirements, that there be a simultaneous communication about the available religious exemptions. So implementing the statute as written, incorporating by reference, and the department's recommendation is that you, as a board, give notice of your intended action to amend chapters 14 and 21.
Any questions about this intended notice? Hearing that, I'll take a motion for the board to give notice to of its intent to amend chapters 14 and 21.
So moved.
Second. Moved by Mary, second by Brian. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion's carried. Okay, chapter 37.
Chapter 37 is a repeal in place of a process for schools that are challenging their placement, their inclusion, or their exclusion of activities conferences. This is to implement House File 783. I apologize for the rulemaking hiccup along the way. There was some public comment received at the regulatory analysis. That public comment is incorporated in the draft. We've seen in incorporating that public comment, measure twice, cut once. I cut a little bit too much. I cut the term limit that, for service on the board. So the agenda item that the department is recommending today is, we'll have that term limit. So, an additional term and the subsequent term reincorporated into the proposed rules. I'm going to quickly walk through the changes at the that were due to regulatory analysis comments. The first is how this committee is selected. The initial draft that went out for regulatory analysis had the 9 AEAs, which when the department was initially drafting, 9 members, 9 activities directors, 9 superintendents, 9, what do we have 9 of? AEAs. The public comment was that might be difficult to fill in some lightly populated AEAs. And rather than react to geography, react to population centers. So the proposal is that the association and union use their 5 districts and then 4 at large to achieve the 9 athletic activities directors, the 9 superintendents or authorities in charge of the networks. The second change is regarding who is providing staffing support and making recommendations to the committee. Based on public comment, the proposal to you is that the rules be silent as to that, and that be accomplished by the committee in its own organization through its own bylaws. And then the third comment that the department reacted favorably to is removal of references to chapters 21 and 22, open meetings, open records. Not because the law is wrong, but because it's unnecessary. Based on the ethos of Executive Order 10, you don't regulate if it's self-evident. This is a body established by statute. A body established by a multi-member body established by statute is subject to both open meetings and open records law. So that reference is removed not because it doesn't apply, but because it's surplus. And the recommendation is give notice of the intended action with the specific inclusion of the erroneous exclusion of the term limits. And with that, open for questions.
So in the opening statement, does it imply that every school district who wants to be in an athletic conference will be in an athletic conference, or?
That's the goal. That's the legislative intent, and that was the intent beforehand. The earlier procedure, the procedure that this is replacing, allowed less of a global view. It was a school being in a conference rather than the committee having the ability to sort of take a more universal look and decide, you know, what's the best fit rather than is this a good enough fit for a particular conference. So yes, that's the expressed intent, both in old law and new law. The structure of this will better ensure that the structure of the new law will better ensure that that happens at the time. The new committee will have much more flexibility to achieve a just outcome than the whole process.
Okay.
So section 37(2), conference realignment committee, does this reflect the language you said we're adding? Or do we have to say more than this?
So it incorporates the statute by reference.
Okay, so the 4, or the 5 plus the 4 at large is incorporated by reference in 37(2).
Yes.
Okay.
And specifically spelled out in 37(2) sub 3 membership.
Right, so so is the motion just to give notice then?
Correct.
Okay, so I would so move.
Second.
Moved by Brian, second by Brooke to give notice. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion's carried. Chapters 1279 and 80.
So, item 5C on your agenda, implement Senate File 418. This was the broader bill that removed gender identity as a required protected characteristic. And the matters before you today in this proposed rulemaking are where that term occurs in the general accreditation standards, chapter 12. In the standards for accrediting practitioner preparation programs, chapter 79, and standards for accrediting paraeducator preparation programs in chapter 80. So this conforms with the requirements of Senate File 418. And the recommendation is to give notice of intended action to amend these 3 chapters to conform with Senate File 418.
Questions about item 5C on the agenda?
I would move to approve.
Okay, it's moved by Marion,
Second.
second by Abe. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Cass, are you with us?
Sorry, I said aye at the same time you all did. Yes.
Okay. Opposed, same sign. Motion's carried. All right, item 5D, chapter 102.
So this is one of the first of many proposed rules where I would like to specifically recognize the Department of Health and Human Services with a close cooperation. This rulemaking amends chapter 102, which is procedures for investigating complaints of the physical or sexual abuse by school employees. Board of Educational Examiners licensed or not, and including volunteers. Senate File 659 transferred that process as of July 1, 2025 to the Department of Health and Human Services. They are beginning to scale up that process. The revised rule, the proposed revisions to chapter 102 that are before you today split the chapter into 2 for complaints prior to June 30th or prior, and then July 1 going forward. So with the understanding that HHS is the prime driver of these investigations going forward, what this proposed rulemaking would do would create a duty to cooperate with HHS by school employees, school leaders. It would recognize the continued duty to report alleged abuse. So the school official is somebody who sees alleged physical or sexual abuse. They have a duty to report independent of this, but also as a part of this, they have a duty to report to activate HHS's process. 659 requires termination of a school employee who has been found by HHS to have committed physical or sexual abuse. HHS has done a very good job of building their proposed rules to provide that employee with a name clearing hearing through their process. But at the end of the name clearing hearing, HHS confirms after a hearing before an administrative law judge or another adjudicator that physical or sexual abuse occurred, duty to terminate. This recognizes that certain school employees have procedural safeguards under chapter 279, but this codifies that those procedural safeguards are limited in scope. Did HHS make a finding? Is there findings? Yes or no? It's not an opportunity to relitigate or challenge HHS's finding. And this does not take away any responsibility or any power of the school to take administrative action against the employee if it was not abuse, but still unprofessional. It does not, in any way sort of limit a school district's, options while, investigation is pending. But it recognizes that, for the most part, the driver of this work is not the level 1 investigator employed by the district, the level 2 investigator contracted with the district, but a statewide team of professionals employed by HHS. The underlying rationale for that was, statewide. It will not vary based on which district employs or trains the level 1 investigator. And these folks will have the benefit, HHS colleagues will have the benefit, practice effect. Unfortunately, prior to this legislation, I would get a call every 3 or 4 months from a panicked level 1 investigator. I've never had one of these. What do I do? And I would always start the call by saying, that's a good thing. It's a good thing that you haven't had to investigate this before. And myself and district council can coach you through this process, but having folks who that is their prime responsibility, rather than another duty is assigned and that it is statewide in uniform, that was the logic set behind the legislative change. So as HHS's rules progress in their process, I anticipate keeping this board and the broader field informed. But they've done excellent work taking this legislative change, which was in the last hour of the legislative session. They've done a very good job in partnership with schools, in partnership with the Department of Education, and things to scale. So with that, recommendation is to give notice of intended action to amend chapter 102, and I'm open for questions.
Thomas, so I understand, so there's still a level 1, level 2 investigation.
Prior to for investigations that started prior to June 30th.
Yeah.
So now, if a school suspects physical or sexual abuse, HHS.
Gotcha, so they just call.
HHS,
Okay.
level 1 or level 2.
Yep.
I can still, if I. Nothing saying I couldn't have a level 1 or level 2 in the investigatory process. But I think that would be administratively complex and might need to delay or deny.
Yep.
So it's no longer required. What is required as of July 1 is referral to HHS.
Yep. Okay.
So what's the standard for the review? I mean, do they give deference to how does that work?
So maybe it would be a good idea at future board meetings to have HHS professionals who are taking this, explain the rules.
That'd be fine. I don't want to delay.
But the burden of, if there is a burden of proof, the individual is presumed to have not committed physical or sexual abuse, and there's a third category of the promotion of prostitution. So physical abuse, sexual abuse, or promotion of prostitution. The standard that HHS is building is, I don't want to mistake, but the presumption to be overcome by the facts is no physical abuse, no sexual abuse, or no promotion of prostitution.
I guess I was understanding it's not a re-litigation of the underlying.
Right. So if HHS makes a final decision, then at the 279 termination,
And that's what I meant.
that is conclusive.
Okay, all right,
Misunderstood.
thank you.
And if there's findings in the Board of Educational Examiners, I'm assuming we're informed.
The statute requires, and HHS is codifying that both the Board of Educational Examiners and the district will be informed. A, of the filings, B, of the evaluation. So if it's a BWE licensed, somebody holds a BWE credential, in addition to this process, in whatever process HHS undertakes, BWE will have its processes too for those who go with scrimmages.
Can they appeal that decision? So if they're terminated, can they appeal that?
It would be a final agency action. I think we would have to work through what effect that would have on the licensees 279 rights, with the understanding that we're all out there on academy. So there might be, I think we'll need to troubleshoot that when it arises, but right.
Okay,
And that might be something that comes out through the course of public comment.
okay. Cause yeah, I mean, if you pull their license and then they're still pending kind of, you know, in that pending judicial review or whatever phase, then. I mean, they can't, you know what I mean, I guess, or is it like just they pull their license when they're even just, you know, going through the administrative process, you know, so it's kind of.
So
Almost
HHS would have a template for this based on how to deal with dependent adult use findings, child abuse findings. Even though this is neither legally, they would have at least a decision.
Process or they.
Or a process
Okay.
that
Makes sense.
perhaps would be the suitable analog or suitable start place.
Okay, thank you.
I move we give notice, rulemaking under chapter 102.
Second.
Moved by Brian, second by Brooke. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
I,
Opposed, same sign. Motion's carried. 5E, chapters 12 and 32.
So this proposed rulemaking updates chapter 12 general accreditation standards and chapter 32 high school equivalency diploma to account for the fact that as of July 1, 2026, to receive either a high school diploma or a HiSET credential, one must pass the civics test derived from the civics test that new Americans must pass through the naturalization process. The test is being built by those who are smarter than me. And because there's not necessary to describe the test itself in this rule, and this rulemaking, the statutory requirement is incorporated by reference. So the recommendation is to give notice of intent to adopt chapters 12 and 32.
So move.
Second. Oh, go ahead.
Motion by Brian, second by Brooke. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
I,
Opposed, same sign. Motion's carried. All right. 5F, chapter 41.
This brings me back to my special education roots. Time to talk about special education, for whatever reason, I kind of get a little glow because I geek out over this stuff. So this is a vehicle to implement House File 787. And this is a rulemaking that would provide for some relief for districts for out-of-state placements when the out-of-state placement is not educationally necessary, but is medically necessary. So a child with a disability who has a reading goal, no or age typical challenging behaviors, but elsewhere in the community, at home, in the workplace, has challenging behaviors to the extent that medical intervention is necessary. The statute creates a process by which typically Medicaid managed care, the managed care organization would recommend medically this child needs this out-of-state placement. There's nothing suitable or available in Iowa. That would trigger then the district's obligation to pay the education component of not room, not board, not transportation, because if it were educationally necessary, the district would need to pay the room, the board, the transportation. So A, limits costs to the education costs only. B, to the extent that there is costs in excess of the funds generated through the waiting plan, the district will receive dollar for dollar reimbursement the next school year. The excess costs will not add to the negative unspent balance. They won't be passed on to taxpayers. Rather, they will be deducted from state foundation aid and spread. Like the risk will be spread to all 324 districts rather than one district. This statute, it's currently, there's some discussion about whether or not it's calibrated right. So there might be some changes in the next legislative session to sort of draw where best to draw the boundaries, where best to set the standard. This incorporates the statute by reference. So any statutory change which the department and departments of education and health and human services are currently collaborating. Any change to the statute would auto-populate. So rather than pulling the rule, while the statute, it's right, consulted with my colleagues at HHS, no objections to moving forward because based on the rules text, if the statutes change, the statutory change auto-populates based on the cross-reference. So understanding that there may be some policy changes that are of a statutory nature, recalibrating, using terms that might make more sense to each of the respective fields, both HHS as well as school districts. When and if that happens, there will only be no need to bring those rules back to you. So for that reason, the department is recommending that the state board give notice of intent to amend chapter 41.
Thomas, what does summarily resolved by the department mean? Last part of.
This is a portion of the statute that if districts are complain, that he's not my resident, he's not my resident, he's your resident. I had when I was at Legal Services, there was a landlord, a father and son with same first, middle, and last name. And they would transfer properties back and forth between each other. So I never knew who to sue, so I wound up suing both of them. This would, like, if Dallas Center, Grimes, and Gilbert, picking two districts, if they were beefing about or couldn't agree on who, if little Tommy was a resident, in the interest of the little Tommy's education moving forward, the department will summarily resolve, understanding that either district, whatever district is selected, their excess costs will be paid through this this cost sharing or cost shifting function of coming off the top of foundation aid. So that was the rationale, not having the child wait while superintendents and school business officials argue over residency, establish residency, understanding that it's zero risk to whichever district is determined to be resident.
Can anybody appeal that?
It would be,
Or does it mean final like this? What DOE says, that's it.
It wouldn't be an appeal to this body, but it could be other agency action under 17A.
Okay.
But again, the district would have to show it to him. How would you show you're aggrieved if you're not out of pocket?
Or you're out of pocket for the educational expense.
But to the extent that
The other, not.
you're out of pocket for the educational expenses, but your taxpayers are not going to bear the excess cost through your negative.
Right.
expenses.
Right. Usually those are fairly easily resolved, but sometimes there's some issues, especially if there's a split family. Or mom and dad live in two different school districts.
We'll find out what people think. Well, we give notice.
The underlying public policy was universal by superintendents during the legislative process. So it's not an objection to the concept. It's sort of getting the margins right. And again, this is one of the rulemaking packages that HHS has been really cooperative and a good partner and a good steward.
It's been moved by Brian. Is there a second?
Second, go ahead, Barry.
We can give this one to Abe since he lost it last time.
I like it some kind.
For those who are keeping score. All right, so it's been moved by Brian, second by Abe. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of giving notice for chapter 41, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. All right, 5G, chapters 41 and 120.
So in the past legislative session, this legislation did not arise as an education bill. It didn't run through the education committee. It was a human services, human resources bill sponsored by Department of Health and Human Services after some consultation with the department. This provision is part of a larger bill on foster care to maximize the normalcy for foster children. That the foster parent can consent to field trips, can consent to getting like routine or doesn't have to call the caseworker every time a routine decision needs to be made. And this is codifying a federal requirement of the foster parents exercising the reasonable prudent parent standard or the reasonably prudent parent. So this initially was is a child welfare. As part of that, there was language that was the intent was to allow foster parents to perhaps act as parents for special education and early access purposes. The mechanism wound up being a little wonky, and this is another instance where the Departments of Health and Human Services and Education might be proposing a cleanup to get rid of that wonkiness. So how the bill is currently structured is HHS has the ability, like a child protective worker or a social worker has the ability to act as as a special education parent and the authority to delegate that to a foster parent. There's a supremacy clause problem there because under federal law, HHS can never make special education decisions except in a very narrowly drawn circumstance that this bill is much broader. So what the bill would do is recognize that, what the rulemaking would do was recognize that a foster parent could be appointed to serve as a decision maker if appointed by HHS. It also clarified it's no need to clarify or no need to amend the language in chapters 41 and 120 that HHS may never make special education or early access decisions. So HHS has been good partner. Another instance where their regulatory team, their legislative team has partnered well with us to try to move this forward pending legislative correction. But foster parents should be able to make decisions if they're otherwise suitable. And at least for the time being, appointed to that role by HHS. And so with that, there may this is another instance where if the wonkiness from the bill is repealed, it auto-populates. There will no need for these rules to come back. So with that, the department's recommendation is to give notice of intent to amend chapters 41 and 120. For those of you who are new to the table, 41 is special education, age the third birthday through graduation or end of 21st birthday, whichever comes first. Early access is birth to the third birthday.
Any questions regarding these chapters?
Is the otherwise qualified to serve, does that just mean they're somehow designated to the exclusion of the natural parents? Does that include that? I mean, are we gonna have conflict here?
Well, elsewhere in places that aren't amended, it sets up a decision rule or like the biological adopted parent, established parent is presumed unless there's a court. And typically, if there's appointment to foster care, there's some sort of court order limiting or depending on what the court order is, the reason that the child is in state care.
Okay. So the order would handle.
The order would handle it, and that's outside. If there's a dispute between established parent, foster parent, established parent, and guardian, established parent, and grandmother with whom the child lives, there's a decision
Okay.
tree that's.
I just didn't want to turn it into 3 people instead of 2. Okay.
Mary, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, I would.
Okay. What would that be?
To give notice and intent to chapters 41 and 120 regarding foster parent decision making.
Okay, moved by Mary. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Cass. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. All right, 5H, chapters 12, 14, and 36.
So this final rulemaking is 4 statutes that I didn't know what to do with. All 4 seemingly non-controversial. I know that to be true because again, nobody responded to the regulatory analysis process. There are folks here who might be able to speak, Director Snow regarding the career planning in the middle level, Dr. Pennington regarding remote ISAS. They might be able to speak to the substance of this. However, the rulemakings largely incorporate those new requirements by reference. So if there's a question about what would remote administration look like, what are career and academic planning at the middle level look like, that would be addressed through policy and through guidance. The rule incorporates by reference. And so items 1 and 2 add career exploration in grades 5 and 6, grades and grades 7 and 8. Item 3 has the authority for remote administration of statewide summative assessments for students who are receiving instruction primarily over the internet. So if I am in an online school, whether that be a district operated school or an online charter, I don't have to drive to a physical location. And item 4, Cedar City Schools incorporates a requirement for policies regarding a seizure action plan and training requirements, and adopting a seizure education program. And item 5, the Boys Association and the Girls Union are now authorized to have interscholastic competition related to robotics. So a bunch of good stuff, a bunch of non-controversial stuff, and decided to consolidate it into one rulemaking. If either Director Snow or Dr. Pennington wish to speak to or elaborate on the underlying public policy, that certainly exceeds the scope of my knowledge. But the underlying public policy is incorporated by reference to the enabling statute. So with that recommendation to amend chapters 12, 14, and 36.
Questions regarding these chapter amendments? Hearing none, Cass, would you like to make a motion?
I would love to make the motion.
Well, make it.
But
Is it something like to give notice to amend chapters 12, 14, and 36?
thank you. I make the motion to amend chapters 12, 14, and 36.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Abe. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion's carried. All right. We are running a little bit ahead of schedule. Board ethics training.
Our one of our assistant attorneys general, Lindsay Browning, presenting remotely. She's also double booked today. The Board of Educational Examiners is meeting at the same time. So Assistant Attorney General Kevin Prossman is messaging her to see if she is if and when she'll be available. While that is happening, just the storyboard out, you will see these rules coming back at the November meeting. That's the anticipated adoption.
So while we're waiting. Are you good?
Yes, no, here.
Okay. We're gonna be ahead of schedule, I think. And Jay, would you be able to present ahead of lunch today?
Sure.
If the board desired, because we have Jay available now, and Lindsay might be committed to a matter with the Board of Educational Examiners, we could jump to ISASP results.
Yeah, that's what it says.
Would you like to do so now?
Let's go ahead and do that, Jay. Ready for ISEPs? You see also.
Jason is doing post-secondary readiness
Okay.
reports. So if we could jump to agenda item number 8, the 2025 ISASP results.
All right. Item 8 on your agenda. And then we'll have our ethics training as scheduled at 11:25.
Okay.
All right, thanks for your flexibility, Jay.
Absolutely. So as always, so Jay Pennington, Division Administrator of the Teacher Quality and Innovation Division in the Department of Ed, and as always, really appreciate the opportunity to present to the board. I'm going to be presenting the results of the statewide assessment of student progress. So I want to provide an overview of the results. And by the way, you know, I tend to move quickly, so please stop me, ask clarifying questions. Let's try to make this as interactive as possible. Throughout the next about 20 minutes. So want to provide an overview of the results from the spring 2025 ISAP administration. Just as a reminder, I'm going to be reviewing the results for English language arts math, which are given in grades 3 through 11. And then in science, the required and assessed grades are grades 5, 8, 10. This presentation dovetails nicely with just giving you an update around the state board goal 2, which is progress in narrowing the achievement gaps. So certainly want to touch on that board priority. And there's a lot of highlights from this release that I'll mention sort of throughout the presentation, but then there's also opportunities for improvement, particularly when we focus on, you know, is there progress? Board President Robbins asked me in the break earlier, you know, am I going to touch on, you know, what the status of gaps are? And that's certainly an area of improvement with this release. So there's different ways to look at the achievement gap. So I'm going to be looking both short term, so looking at the 24 administration that was given in spring of 24 compared to the 25 administration that was given last spring. I'm also going to be touching on what do the long-term trends look like as well. So comparing the 2019 results to the 2025 results. These key takeaways really highlight that year-to-year view. And again, the theme of celebrations along with opportunities for improvement. So the top one looks at the year-to-year results of third graders in spring of 24 compared to the cohort, those that transitioned to fourth grade in 2025. And following that enactment of the legislation in 2024, we see a really nice bump in the proficiency rates of students. So the proficiency rates of those third graders to fourth grade increased an impressive 11 percentage points year to year. In terms of areas of opportunity, with the 2025 results, we do see that math proficiency, to your question a little bit earlier, during the director's comments, we do see high school grades and proficiency rates much lower than the earlier grades. And those differences are ranging from on the low end, 4 percentage points on average, to on the high end, 12 percentage points. Overall lower proficiency rates. When we look at year to year, we see that math results are a little bit lagged behind what we're seeing in English language arts. So while there is an overall increase year to year in math results, it's only about 1 to 2 percentage points when it's higher in ELA. So this, we believe, underscores and reinforces the need for that math counts legislation that passed during the session and is being enacted during the current school year 2025-26. Also looking at science, we do see some increases year to year. The largest increase year to year is in 10th grade. And we see an increase about 7 percentage points looking at 10th graders 2024 compared to 10th grade 2025. And this follows the inclusion of science as a required, science has been required to be tested, but it hasn't been part of the accountability system and the Iowa School Performance Profiles results. So we believe by including that as an accountability measure, a lot of districts and schools have focused on ensuring students are prepared for the assessment, and we see a nice increase of 7 percentage points in grade 10. Next, I'm going to kind of move to longer term analyses. So what you see here are the grades across horizontally, and then you can see each represents the 6 different administrations of the ISAPS. And in this particular case, we're looking at long-term trends for English language arts. And the pluses or minuses represent the amount of increase in the percentage of students that are proficient across the long term at these various grade levels, looking sort of cross-sectionally. You can see there's some pretty sizable gains, 3 percentage points in 3rd grade, 5 percentage points in 4th grade. The largest gain is in grade 8 at 11 percentage points. So some pretty sizable jumps across this 6-year window. Just as a reminder, the assessment was canceled in the 2020 school year. Pretty sizable gains in elementary through middle school. And when we see high school, which is also a theme we see in math, you see either a decrease or flat in terms of the percent of students proficient long term. The same set of data for math. And again, we do see some gains in math long term, but they're not as sizable in terms of what we're seeing in ELA. The largest gains is really in third grade. Then you see, you know, 1s or 2s, a decline at the high school level in 9th grade, and then one grade level in high school going up while the other one's going down percentage. Looking at science, we see much more substantial growth here, or gains in the percent of students proficient. There is a typo here for those that are following. It should say 12 percentage points. So sorry about that. In grade 5, 12 percentage points in grade 8, 3 percentage points in grade 10, looking again long term. The next set of slides are going to jump into answering, Board President, your question around what do the achievement gaps look like? Just to kind of orient you here, this black line represents the average proficiency rate across all those grade levels, which is 73 percentage points. And then in terms of looking at the gap, we're comparing all students to free or reduced price lunch students to the percent of students proficient for students with disabilities compared to English learners, just to provide a little bit of orientation there. We do see some pretty sizable gaps. So this is 16 or 15 percentage points, you know, and then, you know, 40 percentage points and then 43 percentage points in ELA. So pretty substantial gaps. The same
Do we
set
know
of
what those
lines.
gaps were last year by chance?
Sorry, say that.
Do we know what those gaps were the year before?
I do, I have it in my bag. So to cut to the chase, basically what we see when we examine the achievement gap is virtually no change from the prior year. So even though we are seeing increases overall as a state, either the state is going up overall and that student group is going up overall, so the gap remains the same, but it's virtually unchanged from the prior year.
Okay, thank you.
So 70 percentage points in math, 54 percentage points on average for students eligible for free or reduced price lunch, 30 percentage points for students with disabilities, and 25 percentage points for English learners. Again,
And some of those students can be in more than one subgroup.
yes, absolutely. And this gets at you know, even if they are in multiple groups, they're counted in
Right.
each. In terms of science, 67% proficiency for all students, 50 percentage points for students eligible for free or reduced price lunch, 27 percentage points for students with disabilities, and 16 percentage points for English learners. And when you do some comparisons sort of across the different content areas, you do see that the numbers are fairly consistent in terms of the size of the gap, whether you're looking at science, ELA, or math. So those percentages are very the same. So here are the
So for the math subgroups, the actual math subgroups, the
slight
students in the math subgroups are performing better than those in the ELA group and the science group.
gaps are small in math, yes. So what are the takeaways? Sizable gains in early literacy following the 2024 legislation. Impressive gains in 10th grade science following the integration of that content area in our accountability system. And then areas of opportunity or needs. Math lags in terms of the overall gains that we're seeing in ELA. And then in particular, when we look at the high school proficiency rates, they're much, much lower than what we're seeing in elementary and middle school grades. And then, you know, as you saw, large achievement gaps, especially those experienced by students with disabilities and those that are English learners, and virtually no change between the achievement gap year to year in those three content areas.
So where do we go from here? You know that math is going to be a focus coming up. We're revising science standards.
Yep, so the science standards have been revised. They're in implementation this school year. And then we did see a significant increase in proficiency in grade 10 in science. Following the inclusion for the first time of science proficiency in our statewide school accountability system. So those efforts are in place. Obviously, you're very familiar with the comprehensive supports in early literacy that starts with high expectations. So revised content standards are focused on high quality instructional materials, includes strong intervention structures and student identification and progress monitoring, identification universally, screening universally, and then progress monitoring at least every other week. And then the model personalized reading plans and the model personalized math plans going into effect this academic year. The implementation statewide of Amira, the personalized intelligent reading tutoring assistant, where we saw over half a year's growth, 0.6 years growth across 2 benchmark cycles for students who use that tool with Fidelity. We even saw half a year's growth in 3 months' time for students who did not use that tool with Fidelity. We've got our investments in-service teacher professional development, letters, and then now building math minds for math. And then our implementation of supports for pre-service educators and meeting the board's revised accreditation standards aligned to the science of reading. The revisions implementing the Math Counts Act to the teacher prep accreditation standards will be coming before the board in the coming months to ensure alignment to evidence-based math instruction. We've got our family-centered resources implemented for literacy and forthcoming for math. So all of those critical investments and supports we have seen make a remarkable difference through the leadership of educators and families. And we have mirrored each of those structures and math going into effect this school year. So we hope and we expect to see those gains experienced in early literacy able to be reported to you in the coming years in math as well. In regards to persistent achievement gaps, this remains a focus of every conversation, every board meeting that you all participate in and lead. A big component of that has been the future professional learning supports in special education through the policy and practice webinar series, through the 3 networks that we articulated in the department's initial report. And then we are also looking at ways in which we can support pre-service educators in differentiation for students who are English language learners and for students with disabilities in particular. We have you have heard anecdotally, I know, and we have seen in our survey results that that is the area in which teacher candidates and future teachers feel least prepared is differentiation for students who are English language learners and students with disabilities. So that remains work that needs to be done by the department to support the state board's action.
Thank you.
Yep.
Has there been any kind of, I mean, just something, between, I guess, students who attend preschool, students who don't attend preschool, kind of where they are in K through 3, if they did attend a preschool for a couple of years, or if they didn't? Is there a way to see that? And I mean, I know that, not everyone has access to, preschool, that's free or whatever. So I mean, I don't know if there's like a way to, I mean, there might be, because I know, like going my daughter's kindergarten class, I mean, there are some students who went to preschool, maybe there's some that didn't, some that maybe went for a year. I mean, she was in preschool from the 2 on, 18 months actually. So I mean, does that make a difference? I'd love to see that.
There's national research, of course, but I'm not familiar with any recent Iowa specific studies. Are you, Jay?
We haven't looked at that. But
So I think, of course, we are always, and we should be very focused on the work to be done. But in this conversation, it is very important to celebrate the incredible gains in early literacy and science and the very significant work of our expert educators and their and families and of course students across the state. So I want that message to be front and center and uplifted as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think at the lower level grades, there's great things happening. But throughout my career, I just see there's this, I don't know if I have just a disconnect once they get into high school for some reason. I mean, even at the local level where I served, we just, keep digging into it. And I don't know if it's teaching and learning or just, I don't know, because our scores are just off the charts in our elementary, middle school, and then we just start seeing, even at the local level.
Wonder how this plays into things.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
Because like letters training is phenomenal. I mean, just it's awesome. And illustrative math, those are all great things, elementary through middle school, and then just, I'm still searching for those answers as well and those achievement gaps. So
There's probably a lot of different factors.
yeah, a lot of factors.
One factor that's overlooked and can be an issue is this the transition going from building to building.
Oh, yeah, most
Going
definitely.
from elementary to middle school to high school, that transition can be, or that's, could be a factor, but I think it's usually complex problems are more than one.
But I agree with you, Director, so we should be celebrating because those are off the chart with the early literacy and that, so. My focus has always been at that secondary level here of late, just
I also think, the more students who continue to grow in language arts earlier. So instead of seeing 70-some%, we start to see 90-some%, right? That will help maybe that transition.
Yeah.
And also take care of a lot of students catching up sooner who have not been in a preschool environment.
Okay, we have a question from Grace. Grace?
Yes, I was just hearing about the celebration of these achievements in ISASP. I was wondering if there was a way for students to look at or access resources that let them know about these celebratory scores, and then also the resources that they can access, which would further help them in the classroom. Is that just through the school they're enrolled in, or can they look at that like other aspects?
Thank you, Grace. Those are great questions. I think to your first point about ensuring understanding of the importance of our state summative of the ISASP and understanding the results is something that we're always working towards. And this board conversation is obviously a part of that. But if you have additional ideas for how we can ensure students are receiving that information or that the information's provided in a way that is engaging to students, that's great perspective. Jay, did you want to take the second question?
So what resources are available? I mean, there's a lot out there. But you kind of have to look for it a bit. You gotta know what you're looking for. So from a student perspective, you know, there's a lot of information about the test. There's practice tests, blueprints, so that would help you understand what's actually being assessed. You know, to what standards, but then when we think about the results themselves, we've got a ton of information on the department website, things like the Iowa School Performance Profiles website, which includes certainly the proficiency data that you're seeing, but also many more indicators, attendance, graduation rate, post-secondary readiness that provides a well-rounded picture of performance across a number of measures. We've got the annual condition of education report, that state level report. Again, a ton of really good information, including the ISASP results, but then also other information. You know, to your question earlier, you know, what do the results look like for school readiness assessment, or what do those rates look like as kids enter kindergarten? Information like that. And then, you know, Grace, to answer your question more locally, we've got the annual condition of education report does include district level data on proficiency. So you can take that state level trend and look at, you know, how's my school or district doing relative to the rates that you're seeing. So those are just a few examples of some of the resources we have available.
Thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
Yes, sir. Anyways.
Oh, yes?
I just have one quick question, and I'm not sure if I'm going to ask this in quite the right way, but is there any data or correlation between the proficiency scores in English for the English learners and how it contributes to their ability to be successful with math and science?
I mean, just generally speaking, whether it's English learners or any student, I mean, if you tend to score high in one subject, you're going to also tend to score high in another. Also, particularly at the earlier grade levels, you know, the extent to which you know and can understand and read is really critical to translate into, you know, your ability to do well in math tests or science tests.
Mary, just going back to your earlier comment about use of personal electronic devices during instructional time. I've had the opportunity to be in 3 high schools in the past 2 weeks. And in each of those conversations with high schoolers, they have commented about their freedom to focus, their engagement in learning. Educators have commented on how loud the hallways are and the lunchrooms are with students engaging with one another. But I would encourage you when we have Superintendent Trujillo back to ask about her experience as well.
Yeah, thank you. Do we know what the participation rates are for the FAFSA? Are they 100% all students in all schools?
I don't know that off
Okay.
the top.
Just curious.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely been increasing, and it's been a huge focus of the, you know, Iowa College aid, but I don't want to say.
Yeah.
About the percent, you know, Director, you know.
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Participation rates?
FAFSA.
Our overall participation rates, we can look back on that.
Yeah. And then I assume that all of the individual district data is now on the website. That website.
The ISASP results. Yes.
Okay.
And we're working on updating the performance profile, so it should be out later. Well, one last thing, maybe this got to Cass's question that I also did want to mention, really, as it relates to English learners, is, you know, when we take a look long term, and when a student is able to exit EL status, they do tend to perform close to the all students level. So certainly, you know, the ability to understand English is a key component in terms of being able to do well on the test. But when we've looked at that long term, that's what the results say.
Do we collect any information on, just like a snapshot of a student? So, I mean, I know students have data on, you know, like throughout the year. So does the state collect any of that data throughout the year on students, you know, like in each grade? How they're doing maybe in the fall, the winter, and the spring? Or is that just at building level that they do that?
So we do take a look at, particularly when we think about the Eli legislation, there's a required, you know, fall, mid-year and spring benchmark data. And yes, we do take a look at that sort of through the year, you know, to what extent are students who, you know, are not meeting benchmark able to get supports, and then you know, ideally by mid-year or spring, you know, you're at a higher percentage with it. But yes, we get that data, and districts will certainly look at that.
And is that, I mean, are students who, I guess, who are not in those subcategories able to kind of self-correct or with supports able to kind of, and then what about students who are in ELL or free and reduced lunch? Are they able to, I mean, make progress throughout the year? I guess it'd be interesting to look at that.
So we've had those structures established over the past 2 years, and then partially previously in early literacy and the extension of the personalized reading plans to 6th grade. And that has now been will be universally implemented in math. So that articulates all of the data explaining the needs of a student to ensure that they reach proficiency and what specific interventions and supports are being put in place to meet those needs.
You do tend to see a higher percentage of kids that have high quality supports throughout those subsequent benchmark windows. What I think the big thing that changed is science of reading sort of universally. The tools and the data have been there for some time.
I think one technical but important from an implementation point has been all that's now embedded in Panorama Student Success, so that there is a single platform where you can also include the student's personalized reading plan and the student's personalized math plan.
Is my assumption correct that all public, charter, crude, non-public and homeschool are in these numbers?
So this includes charters, public and non-public schools. So these are all students that take the ISASS, but does not.
How are the homeschoolers assessed? Are they?
Yes, it's required.
Okay, so how, but they don't take this test or?
They do take.
Oh, okay, sorry.
But they're not in this report.
They're not.
Okay.
Well, I think we should all celebrate the science of reading and the immediate success that we found, which comes from the quick implementation and providing the right tools and getting our teachers trained and on board with that. And if you were a teacher, I would think you'd be very excited about the results that we're starting to see, even so early. Looking forward to math and science. It's very exciting.
It's huge.
It's huge.
Do a lot of curriculums in elementary school have science as part of their? Is it required to have science in elementary school?
Yes,
Like an actual like separate science track?
they have to teach science.
But like.
How
have,
it's
like,
taught
separate-
is.
Oh, okay, okay.
But in particular, the emphasis of that integration into the accountability system, you know, we are seeing a nice increase and expect to see more emphasis on that. That's just another sort of lever, state level lever to ensure, you know, certainly it's up locally to determine what that curriculum looked like and how it's taught, but the results are part of that system.
Just as a reminder, so for elementary, our accountability system is a very transparent and clear evaluation of proficiency in ELA, math, and science, and then of growth in ELA, math, and then experience by students who are English language learners. We do not have a growth measure in science because it is not administered year over year. It's administered in grades 5, 8, and 10, not 3 through 11 like ELA and math. Then we have chronic absenteeism as our final indicator, looking at both the chronic absenteeism rate as well as the attendance growth experienced by students who were chronically absent. And we're working to finalize that data, and I expect to have more to celebrate at the next board meeting.
High expectations are such a key.
Mhm.
Setting them and having them in place with fidelity and integrity are so important. So I applaud you. I hope my colleagues do as well.
Yes,
Huge
we
accomplishment.
do.
Huge accomplishment.
Jay, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank
thank
you.
you so much.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
We are now ready for our training on ethics.
Good job.
Good job to our educated students.
We did the, don't look. Yeah,
What are you
yeah.
doing?
Going back as we jump forward.
Oh,
So here we go.
Good morning, everyone. I apologize I am not with you in person this morning. I am also serving the Board of Educational Examiners at its meeting today, so I needed to end up being remote to be in two places at once. Hopefully, you've had a good meeting so far. I look forward to reviewing the presentations and the recording so I can be up to speed with you folks for the next meeting. Again, for those who do not know me, my name is Lindsay Browning, and I am the section chief of the Administrative Law Section for the Iowa Attorney General's Office. My colleague Kevin Protzman is there today, and I'm sure he is serving you well. I wanted to take a minute to thank you for your patience with me as I present this in a remote capacity. I genuinely love speaking with others, particularly about service, so I do apologize that I'm not there and in person to do so. To go ahead and kick us off about why what you do is important, and we're going to answer those questions through a series of questions today. The first is, what is the board? The second is, why is there a board? Why do you serve? Third, how do you serve? And fourth, whom do you serve? And those are all very important questions, which Iowa statute has clearly defined for us. Really, at a basic overview level, this presentation in itself is quite simple. Some of the questions that can result from the presentation may become quite nuanced, and that's something that Thomas and I are both available to assist you with. If you have questions regarding your board service and potential conflicts of interest, please contact Thomas first, and then he will reach out to me. Prior to beginning today, are there any questions that I can answer for folks? All right, hearing none, I'll go ahead and get started. If we could go to the next slide, please. What is the State Board of Education? Folks know this better than I do, but we're going to go ahead and pop to the second slide. So the State Board of Education supports the department, and this particular graphic on the website I found very instructive as to what the department's mission is, what its pillars are, and then what I wanted to focus your attention on is the broader mission that you folks are charged to execute in support of the department, and that is a mission to ensure all students experience a world-class education. And certainly reviewing the numbers recently that you folks have put out on literacy, etc. You folks are making great strides for the students of Iowa, and I commend you for that. And as we go to the next slide, I want to go through all the different ways in which you as a state board serve the department, and then the state through your service to the department. One thing I want to note and highlight at the beginning of our presentation here is that the board is established for the department, not the other way around. So, and I from everything that I have observed from you folks, no one seems to have any issues in understanding that there. And certainly we thank you for your acknowledgement of the service that you do. The state board, it statutorily consists of 9 members, 7 voting members. You as members that are voting members are appointed by the governor and subject to Senate confirmation, which is a very pleasant process for everyone involved, whether at a state level or a national one. So I applaud you for making it to this level, so to speak. The voting members shall also be registered voters of the state of Iowa and held no other elective or appointive state office. Not more than 5 voting members shall be of the same political party. The voting members shall be members of the general public, and a voting member shall not be engaged in professional education for a major portion of the member's time, nor shall the member derive a major portion of income from any business or activity connected with education. And we're going to be talking a little bit through hypotheticals today related to that specific piece. I think it's important to note that in the world of education, what we call consent to sell is very important for those of you who offer business which support education in some respect. And you may have very specific questions for Thomas or I resulting from this presentation, and we'll be happy to field those. The terms of office for voting members are 6 years, beginning and ending as provided in statute. Again, thank you for your time. 1 non-voting student member. Grace, thank you for your presence here. We certainly appreciate your perspective always. And your specific guidance for appointments is in that section that's noted there. The director of the Department of Workforce Development, Director Townsend, serves as a non-voting member, of which I'm sure you're aware. Next slide, please. What are the duties of the group of folks that you folks are is comprised on the previous slide. Next slide, please. First, and I tried to go through the 35, 37, 30 some odd duties you folks have as prescribed under statute. I was able to break them down into 3 categories. Your brain may not work the way mine does, so bear with me. But if you do need a statutory reference, go back to that previous slide and take a look at that code section. That's where all of this is laid out. So, the policy and goal setting functions of this board is to adopt and establish policy for programs and services of the department pursuant to the law. And that's the primary function of what you folks do. And if you have any questions about that particular duty or how it executes, I'll make sure to stop after this immediate section so that you can ask me. You folks also constitute the State Board for Career and Technical Education. You establish and utilize ad hoc advisory committees as determined necessary by your board. You elect a state board president. Thank you, President Johnson. You adopt and update annually a 5-year plan for the achievement of educational goals in Iowa. So important to be on mission for that top piece of the institutional structure we saw there. And prescribe guidelines for facility standards, maximum class sizes, and maximum in-classroom pupil teacher and teacher aide ratios for grades kindergarten through 3 and before and after school and summer childcare programs provided under the direction of a particular school district. Next slide, please. You also have a very distinct function as it pertains to rulemaking. I understand we've gotten to see that play out in real time here this morning. Thank you, Thomas, for your guidance and your leadership on that. One of the primary functions as outlined statutorily for your board is to adopt rules under Iowa Code 17A for carrying out the responsibilities of the department. Also to adopt rules pursuant to Chapter 17A relating to educational programs and budget limitations for those educational programs. Lindsay, what is 17A? Well, if you're not familiar with it, Iowa Code Section 17A is the Iowa Administrative Procedures Act, by which all boards and commissions, agencies generally, as we title them, are governed in the state of Iowa. 17A goes into not only how the agencies govern themselves, but how they interact with the public, how rules and specific provisions of law are evaluated by these commissions and bodies, and what redress citizens may have if they have concerns related to any action taken by these bodies. So you folks also adopt rules under 17A for the use of telecommunications and the attendant bodies that would use that as an institutional tool. And it sets out some very specific statements related to that. You adopt rules and a procedure for accrediting all apprenticeship programs in the state which receive state or federal funding. Adopt rules that set standards for approval of family support, pre-service and in-service training programs offered by area education agencies and practitioner preparation institutions, and family support programs offered by or through local school districts. You also adopt rules that include children who retain some sight, but who may have medically diagnosed a medically diagnosed expectation of visual deterioration within the definition of children requiring special education. That's a very specific rule and one I hope to learn more about because I was interested in that. But adopt the rules that require the board of directors of a school district to waive, my apologies, to waive school fees for indigent families, adopt rules incorporating accountability for student achievement and standards and accreditation, adopt rules for procedure for the approval of paraeducator preparation programs. Next slide, please. You also have an evaluation function in addition to the policy and goal setting and rule making functions. You prescribe standards and procedures for the approval of practitioner preparation programs and professional development programs offered by AEAs. Develop evaluation procedures that will measure the effects of instruction by means of telecommunication. Require each community college to establish, which establishes new jobs, training, or projects and receives funds derived from or associated with the project or projects to establish a separate account to act as a repository for any funds received. And we'll talk about financial oversight in a few minutes. Define the duration of the school day, adopt a set of core content standards applicable to all students in kindergarten through grade 12 in every school district and accredited non-public school, set standards and procedures for approval of training programs for individuals who seek an authorization issued by the Board of Educational Examiners for those factors set forth in that paragraph. Next slide, please. Also, and another function that you've seen in action this morning, adjudication. You hear appeals of persons aggrieved by decisions of boards of directors of school corporations and other appeals prescribed by law in a manner consistent with Chapter 17A. Okay, we can move forward here. Essentially, Lindsay, why are you telling me how much work I have to do? Because of those 35, 30 some odd duties that you folks have, the breadth of your service requires attention to detail when it comes to the conflicts of interest. Next slide. So these are some general guiding principles. Please make sure that you follow all open meeting and records laws and take any alleged violations of those laws seriously. Avoid conflicts of interest, which I'll address in just a moment. Anytime that you feel that your objectivity as a board member may be impaired, please seek the advice of legal counsel, Thomas or myself, and review and follow the Code of Administrative Judicial Conduct when you are acting in your capacity as an adjudicator, which you did this way. Next slide. How do you serve? These are some specific rules on closed session. I believe you folks are all familiar with these, so I am going to skip ahead a bit. Next slide. Again, they'll take you through the process, and if you have any questions, make sure you let me know. How do you serve? Best practices. Review the APA, that Chapter 17A that I was just talking about. Make sure that you aren't lobbying in your capacity as a board member. We can discuss that at a later point. Do not accept those gifts from those who you as a board member regulate or contract with. And if you lease or sell goods or services to those regulated by the board, ask Thomas or Lindsay for additional guidance. Please remember that board members acting in good faith in their capacity as board members are indemnified by the state. Typically, those that are not indemnified by the state. And I can let Brian explain that to you over lunch if anybody's got any questions. But essentially that means if you're acting in bad faith, we're not going to pay the bill for it, I believe is how that breaks down. Next slide. So this again goes to open records and open meetings, which I could very easily take an entire hour to discuss. So if you folks have any questions on what constitutes an open record, we can certainly discuss that at a later point. Generally speaking, you do not want more than a quorum of you to be sending emails back and forth, because then you've put yourself in a meeting, even though it's not an in-person meeting. And we can talk through that if you have questions at the end here. Next slide, please. Okay. Remember that board records are confidential. One bright line rule that I like to offer, and we can certainly follow up on this, is if you are not comfortable with what you are writing to be put on the front page of the Des Moines Register, you should or should not maybe send that. So keep that in mind. Next slide. Again, more public records best practices, which may be a big part of your service. And again, we can get to the specifics of these at a later point. If you have any direct questions, I'm certainly happy to field those. Next slide. So again, we're going to talk a little bit about conflicts of interest today. You should avoid those, but how and when they arise, the circumstances can be unique to certain boards. Obviously, this particular board covers a lot of different areas as it relates to doing the people's business for the Department of Education. So you really want to make sure that you're paying attention. Anytime you feel that your objectivity on making a particular vote or decision may be impaired, please make sure you talk to Thomas or I. Next question, or next slide, please. Hypotheticals. So I wanted to work through these. What would happen if, and if we could go to the next one. Attorney Jim serves on the State Board of Education and has his own law practice in Des Moines, Iowa. He is approached by a new client, DMAC, to review a purchase agreement for new equipment for a program in their curriculum. Should Jim take the client and review the asset purchase agreement and charge money for it? Why or why not?
Say no.
Sorry.
I think there was, one of the answers around the board table was no.
Okay. And who offered that answer?
I did, Brian.
I figured I was gonna call on you, but I figured I shouldn't. Why shouldn't we do it, Brian?
Because you're getting paid for the service while you're on the board. I think whether it's prescribed or not, it's still not a good practice. So I wouldn't do it.
And I think for me, one of the things that comes to mind is if what gives you a source of income, whether it be your primary, secondary, tertiary, if it could somehow be seen as contingent upon a board vote or a board decision, that is problematic, right? And that's something that we need to be talking through and working through specifically as a board. I picked on attorneys in this particular situation because we're used to being picked on. So if we could go to the next slide. Oh no, Brooke, what'd you do? Okay, Attorney Brooke, who works Brooke works for the state of Iowa at agency. The state board is considering whether to fund a school law position at agency. Brooke has already submitted an application to work in this new attorney role, funded by the Department of Education. Should Brooke vote as a member of the state board about the funding of that position?
He says yes. What did I misunderstand you?
Right. And so I've tried to make these as obvious as I could. Clearly, they don't necessarily apply to just lawyers, but both of these should illustrate the same principle to you, whether you're employed in a public or private sphere. Where it comes back to if you're receiving a portion of your income, which may or may not be impacted by the vote that you have, that's something that we want to make sure we're protecting both you and the state. So please make sure you come to Thomas or I to discuss that particular circumstance. And sometimes these things come up. In my experience in service with boards over the course of the past 3 years, one thing I have noticed is that Iowans generally tend to over worry about conflicts of interest. But I would much rather hear why you feel that because your brother-in-law's second cousin is employed by an institution, you can't approve its accreditation. Versus having a direct conflict of interest and doing nothing about it. So please, if you feel that your decision-making capacity could be impaired in any way in a particular setting or decision, please make sure that you check with Thomas first and then myself related to any concerns or questions that you have. I'm trying to, I think that's it, folks, on that point. Could we go to the next slide? This could happen if things go, these are some potential consequences if things go awry. I'm not concerned about things going awry, just food for thought, okay? Next slide. Remember that one of the reasons we have so much care and concern for ethical practice, particularly as it pertains to a department as broad as education and the way it touches so many Iowans in their lives, we want to make sure that you remember you first and foremost in your capacity as board members serve the state of Iowa, the people of Iowa. You know, people ask me all the time who my boss is, and I say, well, which one? And ultimately, at the end of the day, yes, I serve an elected officer. Yes, I serve her management structure. But at the end of the day, my boss is the state of Iowa. And in your capacity, the people of Iowa. So the guy that I'm filling up next to at Casey's, I answer to him. And that's something that we need to make sure as public servants we remember. You folks are in that public service capacity. And if you have any questions about any conduct that you feel might be concerning, please make sure you raise that with Thomas first, and then Thomas and I will work it through, okay? Any questions specifically? I know you folks have a lunch date. I'm sorry, I did the best I could this morning running back and forth. I certainly appreciate your patience with me.
Any questions for Lindsay or Thomas?
So I would just like to turbocharge everything that she said, understanding that the statutes that she cited set out mandatory minimums. There's nothing stating that you can't hold yourself to a higher personal and ethical standard.
Correct.
So it's the, what I call the karaoke rule, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And I would defer to you all in your sound judgment, and defer to you in your sound judgment about, even if it's permissible, it might not be a good idea. And so understanding these are mandatory minimums, and it's an interesting it's an interesting way of life following only mandatory minimums rather than sort of what you were taught or how you were raised. So any other comments or questions from the board? I thought this is a great summary, and Assistant Attorney General Browning and I are willing to workshop individual questions that you have offline.
Good reminders.
Thank you, folks. Please enjoy your lunch. And again, I'm sorry I'm not able to be there in person with you today.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Thank you. Thanks, Lindsay. Thank you, Thomas. We are going
Thanks, Kevin.
we're going to break for lunch. Now we'll be resuming the board meeting at 12:30. And we have somebody from the item 7 on the agenda is Dordt University Educator Preparation Program approved. Take it away.
Thank you and good afternoon, President John Robbins, Director Snow, members of the board and leadership. Thank you for having us at Gilbert here today. My name is Stephanie Teacup with the Educator Quality Team within the Division of Teacher Quality and Innovation. One of my responsibilities is the state approval process for reaffirmation of accreditation. Joining us from Dordt University today includes Dr. Dave Mulder, the chair of the education program, as well as Abby DeGroat, the director of teacher preparation. The educator quality team, including myself and my colleagues, Marian Rodzavo, Lindsay Harrison, and Amy Mayer, engaged in an extensive program review to verify and validate Dordt's compliance with the educator preparation program standards in Chapter 79, as well as provide recommendations for continuous improvement. The reviewed programs included teacher and administrator preparation. As a result of DORT's self-study of reviewing the generalist paraeducator program, DORT has decided to discontinue the program. There's not a need for a teach-out plan as there are currently no students enrolled. A broad overview of DORT's evaluation includes a total of 21 experts engaged in the review process. 135 survey responses were analyzed. 103 course syllabi were reviewed. During the on-site portion, the team conducted 28 interviews and 6 classroom interviews. The classroom interviews offer the review team an opportunity to obtain feedback from students beyond the surveys across all programs and at different levels or points ranging from freshmen to seniors, and in this case, administrator preparation candidates as well. Student files were audited for adherence to program checkpoints and required documentation. Like always, our team will continue monitoring through the follow-up visit in a year and annual report submissions. Within the assurance components, DORT is in compliance with the Higher Learning Commission. Curriculum exhibits are approved by the Educator Quality Team and Board of Educational Examiners, and the identified concerns from the review have been resolved, resulting in compliance with Chapter 79. For continuous improvement, recommendations were shared with the program that were recognized or acted upon. Today, I'll be sharing key highlights of the standards containing the majority of recommendations and concerns. Before I get into that, I will have to say that today feels like a celebration. I shared that with the program earlier, and in my 3 years, this has been the cleanest review with the most responsive program to date. So thank you so much for that. In the governance standard, the review team praised DORT for weaving leadership standards throughout the program and for the director's strong oversight of candidate progress through those various checkpoints. Another strength that really came out while we were on campus was not only their belief in their mission statement, but how they live their mission day in and day out. It was a pleasure to be able to witness that. Another highlight is the innovative use of webinars to address timely education issues, which will now be embedded in coursework. Importantly, no compliance concerns were identified in the governance standard. In the faculty standard, the team applauded faculty as a clear strength, highlighting their dedication, co-teaching practices, and strong field engagement. One recommendation was made to ensure consistent faculty field logs, and the unit responded with a structured protocol. 2 concerns were identified, including alignment of faculty supervision assignments and formal evaluation of adjuncts. The unit committed to corrective action, including new supervision models and systematic adjunct evaluation processes. The team highlighted DORT for a strong assessment system, intentional use of data, and meaningful candidate feedback. 2 recommendations were made around refining rubrics and continuing the inter-rater reliability work, and the unit has already taken steps to address both. No concerns were identified in the assessment standard. In teacher knowledge, skills, and dispositions, the review team commended the unit for strong alignment of literacy instruction with the science of reading, which is backed up from their high passive rate of candidates taking the foundations of reading test. They were also commended for providing consistent faculty support and feedback to candidates. A recommendation was made to expand the current classroom management course across multiple endorsement areas. The unit is considering and addressing this request during this current academic year. No concerns were identified. In the administrator preparation, the team praised DORT for its strong clinical experiences, clear expectations and careful integration of the National Educational Preparation Standards, commonly referred to as NELP, across both courses and clinicals. One recommendation was made to embed optional webinars into courses and lab classes, which the unit is implementing this fall. No concerns were identified. The review team recommends full approval based on the evidence for Dordt University's educator preparation programs until the next site visit. Before I move to questions, I will hand things over to the Dordt representatives to share their comments.
Welcome.
Thank you. As Stephanie said, my name is Dr. Abby DeGroat. I am the Teacher Preparation Program Director. This is my colleague, Dr. David Holder. Thank you for having us, and we'd also like to express appreciation to the DOE for designing and executing just a very thorough and rigorous process, but also one that we feel helped us improve our program in meaningful and academic ways. So thank you. Yeah. A couple of program updates that we'd like to highlight since the visit and things that are ongoing, as well as unique elements of our program. One, as was already alluded to, we're very proud of our ongoing initiative to highlight and strengthen the science of reading in our program among our candidates. We had a 75% passage rate in our first cohort on the Foundations of Reading test. We had 24 candidates take the test, which was a strong group, we thought. So we're happy with that passage rate, and we look forward to continuing highlighting that along the way. Also, we've submitted a grant to partner with the Department for K-12 Professional Development. A group of our professors has developed and will hopefully get to execute that professional development in K-12 schools near us. So we're excited about that possibility. And we also, over the summer, got approval to offer a reading endorsement at the grad ed level. We already offer it at the undergrad level, but we're excited to revamp our graduate level reading curriculum in alignment with that science of reading, and to offer that endorsement to our grad students as well. And we think that will be a real value add to teachers as well as to the university. We also just approved MAT, a Master's of Art in Teaching, designed for secondary teachers who may have the content area coursework already finished and need to get the education piece and the fieldwork pieces finished. And so we have our first cohort that started this summer. We've got a cohort that started this fall. And so we look forward to expanding and promoting that as well going forward. A couple of unique elements of our program that we'd like to highlight. One is our Professional Development School, which is a year-long teaching program that began as a grant. How many years ago? I think this is for 16. And has just continued. We have 4 students in the program this year. Last year we had 6. It's usually hovered between 5 and 10. But the qualitative research that we collect from students indicates that it really helps prepare our student teachers in a meaningful way beyond the normal 14-week student teaching experience. They're able to be in a classroom from the beginning of the year to the end and see an entire year. They're there for half a day in the fall, and then they continue in the same classroom for their full-time student teaching experience in the spring. And we think that's just a real strength of our program. Last spring, we had a PDS student present at NAUSP, the National Association of University and School Partnerships Conference, and she received the Student Research Award for research she did in our program. And so we're just proud of the way that that program has been available to and helped our students. We also operate 2 Thrive Centers, they're called, which are centers in association with the university. One is this Thrive Center for Achievement, which tutors local students, local K-12 students they have problems with reading, math, offers systemic instruction to students with dyslexia, among other things. And it also offers our teacher preparation candidates an opportunity to work there as work study, to get experience tutoring students under supervision. And it's just an added benefit for the community. In addition, we'd like to highlight our ongoing data collection in our improvement process. In addition to what's required of us by the state to collect data, we also hand out surveys to our graduating seniors, and then we also send them to our first year, third year, and fifth year grads every year, as well as their administrators, and receive a lot of quality feedback that we then analyze at a pretty deep level, and we feel like is really helpful to our program's continuous improvement. Coming up, we continue to hope that our grad programs especially are going to help with the teacher shortage that our area and really the state is facing. We have an initial licensure program in special education that is about 3 years old that keeps growing, as well as licensure opportunities for both Strat 1 and the Strat 1 and 2 all endorsements at the grad level that is very strong and we are proud of, as well as the MAT that I spoke of earlier. We will continue to, right now, we're working through the workbook on the math curriculum. So while we're already in compliance, we hope to keep strengthening our math preparation through that process as well. And then finally, we looked at our summer retreat this year, thinking about ways to, now that we're through the accreditation process, ways to restructure our program and continue making those improvements to avoid redundancy, to address some of the issues that we've seen in our feedback from students. So thank you for having us.
Thank you. Questions or comments for our Dordt representatives?
You may have said it and I didn't hear it because this is super loud.
I'm trying to fix it.
Is your enrollment and steady, flat, declining, increasing?
Great question. So both having our graduates from our teacher program, which is kind of let's be able to say that. Back in the day, way back in the day, 30 years ago, when we would typically have about 75 education majors to a class. That was kind of our normal. Since then, there's been a steady decline. For the last 7 years or so, we've probably had between 45 and 50 candidates every graduating class. But we've definitely seen an upswing in the past couple of years. This year, we have record-breaking enrollment at Dordt in general, actually the last 3 years running. This year, for the first time, our total enrollment is over 2,000 students at Dordt for the whole university. We're pleased with it. But we've seen a commensurate rise for the number of students in education. So our current junior class, we have 72 education majors in our junior class. Our current sophomores is high 60s. I don't remember the exact number. And our freshman class remains to be seen, but we have 72 students taking our introduction education course this fall. So we've had 45-ish the last few years to see close to 70 in each class now. That's really exciting for us to just know there's interest in what we're doing, and we see that coming through the students.
Great, thank you.
A question I have is related to the dyslexia endorsement. We've got 2 programs in the state. I understand that Dordt has been considered potentially launching such a program. Can you talk through what your thinking is currently?
Yeah, thank you for that question. We pursued the reading endorsement first because we feel like that was more doable and also more of a demand for teachers that we seek, but we also see a lot of overlap with the dyslexia endorsement requirements in some of the courses we developed there. And so that is actually something we've talked about, is looking at doing a closer analysis of those requirements and see what we would need to add. I think we're a lot closer than we were through the development of the reading endorsement, and we would like to pursue that in the future.
That's exciting. And I think we've been talking in our regional superintendent's meetings about this, but a pre-filed piece of department legislation created was acted upon by the General Assembly, was enacted, and created a pathway for supplemental pay for educators who attain the dyslexia endorsement. That has been in discussion with our dyslexia board, with the Iowa Reading Research Center, and Faculty Council, and educators who have programs across the state. So we're excited about that educator incentive going into effect for the first of the school year.
That's good to know. Thank you.
Just a couple of comments. First of all, I'd like to thank the team for their program Fast Facts, which highlights what all was done. Thank you for that. I noticed I also liked having the 2017-18 correlation from before. I saw there was one that was overlapped with the, basically with the faculty standard assignment and expertise and then the adjunct eval, and it sounds like that has been corrected.
It has.
Quite a statement you made it to start as far as this is one of the cleanest reviews you've had. Says a lot about you guys.
Yeah, congratulations on that. It's pretty impressive.
In the time from the preliminary review, which is a lot of people think of that as the desk audit. And then we send the program a report by the time we got on campus, which we consider is 6 months.
A little less.
Yeah.
Most everything was resolved before we even got on campus. So it was.
Yeah, and we did look at that as an opportunity to address it.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, we appreciated that.
It's good.
One component you also mentioned in your presentation was the self-assessment around the evidence-based math components and code that will be a part of the board's accreditation standards and how you're already executing your self-assessment to ensure alignment. Can you kind of talk through your process of implementing prior to the change in the accreditation standards?
Sorry, can you say the last part one
Your
more time?
process in implementing the Math Counts Act prior to the change in the accreditation standards, so the components of evidence-based math instruction and code.
I can speak in the broad strokes of it.
Yeah.
We've had a husband-wife team on our faculty. So Dr. Ryan Zonneveld teaches in the education department, Dr. Valerie Zonneveld teaches in the math department. And they co-teach our methods courses. They both have backgrounds as math educators, which is pretty exciting. Valerie in particular has ongoing research that very closely aligns with what the state has been proposing here anyway. And so things she's been doing, both in our secondary and elementary math methods coursework, already was aligned with this stuff. And so it was just interesting. And Ryan and I had a short conversation.
And particularly the competency-based
Yes.
assessments she's implemented in our program prior to this.
Yeah, and it's been going for at least 2 years.
Yep.
I think 3, actually. So a lot of the pieces were already in place because they're just very tuned in to what's considered best practice and promising practice.
And they are going through the workbook together. We have a meeting set up for later this semester to meet around that self-assessment and go forward there.
And you have a recommendation in front of us.
I move full approval for reaccreditation of Dordt University's educator preparation programs.
Okay,
Second.
moved by Brooke and second by Brian for full approval recognition. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion's carried. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Congratulations. Pleasure.
We are on to item number 9, post-secondary readiness. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I am. Thank you.
Are you down to 50?
Huh?
Are you down to 50?
No. Don't try to take that, kill him. Yeah. Fight someone over a cookie.
Portion of the deck here. My apologies. Let me share my screen. All right. Thanks for bearing with me. Good afternoon. My name is Jason Crowley. I'm an administrative consultant in the Bureau of Performance and Analytics at the department.
And today I'm here to give you a preview of the data that's going to be in the Iowa Post-Secondary Readiness Reports, which is being updated this afternoon. And just talk a little bit about state level trends and the trends we've been seeing within those reports. The Iowa Post-Secondary Readiness Reports report on the post-secondary outcomes, enrollment, retention, and completion of all public high school graduates. These have been around in some capacity for approximately the past decade. And today I'm going to be giving you an overview of what's in those, state level trends, and then what has changed from last year's report. And touch a little bit on some related data that's in the Iowa School Performance Profiles website that touches on post-secondary readiness. So since this looks at the post-secondary outcomes of Iowa high school graduates, this data in this report is very directly related to a couple of the State Board of Education goals, specifically the goal to promote equity in education by closing achievement and opportunity gaps, as well as the goal to provide all students with multiple pathways to post-secondary success. The reports are a product of the state's statewide longitudinal data system, which is an interagency collaboration between the Board of Regents, the Iowa Department of Education, and then specifically within the department, the Bureau of Iowa College Aid, the Bureau of Community Colleges, and our Bureau, the Bureau of Performance and Analytics, which works with PK-12 data, as well as Iowa Workforce Development. The reports provide detailed information about college enrollment, persistence, and completion, both at the state level, as well as providing the ability to drill down to the school level so that provide local outcomes data to inform local school improvement practices. And the data is also disaggregated by student group to allow to identify and impact those achievement gaps. So the website itself has a broad array of reports which touch on the different kind of indicators that I referred to. The data that I'll show today is pulled directly from the state summary document, which you can see on the slide is available via the state reports dropdown. And this document is just a 3-page document which shows very high-level statewide trends across all of these indicators. So as I alluded to, there were some changes to the reports themselves other than just adding a new year data with the release that's going out today. One of those is the full implementation of registered apprenticeship data. In last year's data update, we did provide some state level registered apprenticeship participation data, but the registered apprenticeship data has been fully integrated into all reports now, so it's available at the school level as well. This slide shows some of the state level trends overall statewide, going back to the class of 2018 through the class of 2024, which is the most recent graduating class with data available. There's been a rapid increase in the number of high school graduates who have participated in state apprenticeships, registered apprenticeships in the fall immediately following high school graduation. That's up from 0.3% of the graduating class in the class of 2018 up to a peak of 1.3% of graduates in the class of 2023, with a slight dip, class of 2024 down to 1.2% or 431 graduates. The table at the right shows among those class of 2024 graduates, who did participate in a registered apprenticeship, the most common occupations or programs that they went into. So the top 3 being electrician, nurse assistant, and welder. The other addition to the reports this year is the inclusion of Iowa Community College non-credit enrollment. To this point, only 4 credit enrollment had been included in the reports, but we're adding participation in non-credit enrollment going forward. With that being said, non-credit enrollment at Iowa Community College is very broad. There's a lot of different types of non-credit enrollment. So for the purposes of these reports, we're limiting it to students who enrolled in at least 32 contact hours of a career and technical education non-credit enrollment. So as you can see, the chart at the right shows the percent of graduates who enrolled in non-credit coursework by graduating class, and that's been relatively flat over the period of time we're looking at from the class of 2018 to the class of 2023, between 1% and 2% of the graduating class, with a slight uptick in the class of 2023 up to 1.7% of high school graduates. This chart shown on the screen here is something we refer to as the Prep Trend Lines report. And its purpose is to take a longitudinal look over a set of various indicators related to post-secondary access and engagement, with the denominator of all these rates or indicators being all high school graduates. So starting at the top of the chart, we have the percent of students who intend to go to post-secondary. And that data is collected through the high school graduation survey that high school seniors are required to fill out. And so starting at the first year of data available, the class of 2012 up through the most recent data available, class of 2024, we see a long-term decline in that rate of students who intend to go to post-secondary from 81% in the class of 2012 down to 71% in the class of 2024. The next line down is the rate or the percent of students who actually enroll in post-secondary within 1 year of high school graduation. Once again, we see long-term declines in that rate from 70% in the class of 2012 down to 62% in the class of 2023, the most recent year of data available. The next line down is the percent of all graduates who persisted into their second year of post-secondary, either actually enrolling in that second year or having earned some type of degree or award within that first year of after high school graduation. And that has ticked down slightly from 59% in the class of 2012 to 55%. I'm sorry, 53% in the class of 2022. And then the last two lines are the percent of high school grads who actually completed some type of degree or credit awards. That could be anything from a community college certificate or diploma to an associate's degree, all the way up to a bachelor's degree or a graduate degree. And now also completing a registered apprenticeship. The blue line, the second to last line, is the percent who completed within 6 years. And that has been pretty consistently right around 47 or 48% in all graduating classes. And then the bottom line, the red line, is the percent who completed within 4 years. And that has actually ticked up from the class of 2012 and is hovering right around 38 to 37% with the class of 2020.
Question for you.
Absolutely.
So the bottom two lines, completed in 4 years and completed in 6 years, are those mutually exclusive groups or?
No, they'd have overlaps. So all of the students who are counted as completing within 4 years are also counted as completing within 6 years.
Thank you.
So the other caveat with this, since we did just add the registered apprenticeship and non-credit data to the reports this year, there's that dashed line down the middle of the chart between the class of 2017 and the class of 2018. So registered apprenticeship and non-credit enrollment is included in all the classes after that, 2018 and more recently, where it's not included in the data in the class of 2017 and prior. So this chart serves a few different purposes, but one of the things that you can see with this chart are the number or percent of graduates who kind of fall off at each different stage of engagement with post-secondary. There's the roughly 30% who don't intend to go to post-secondary at all. You can see the gap between intent and actual enrollment within 1 year hovers around 10% of the graduating class. There's a significant portion who intend to go, but for whatever reason, don't when it comes to enrolling 3 months after they took that survey. With that being said, this is measuring enrollment within 1 year. So there could be students who enroll later on in their lives than just the fall or the year immediately after graduation. There's another 10 percentage point roughly gap between those who enroll within 1 year and then those who persist in the second year. So those students who do enroll but don't come back. And then there's another gap between the students who persist but don't end up completing a credential within 4 or 6 years. So this is a chart that we commonly refer to and publish on the site because it tells a lot of different stories with data. So I'll pause here just in case you have any more questions, because there's a lot going on, and I'm gonna give you a second to.
Do people move from not registered to registered or vice versa?
From an apprenticeship standpoint?
Yeah.
So we only collect data at this point, at least, on registered apprenticeships. So if there are
People
any
who stay that the whole time, or I'm just trying to, okay.
Yeah, and we do capture and count completion of registered apprenticeship. So for instance, if the students started apprenticeship, registered apprenticeship, completed, they'd be counted in those bottom 2 lines as having completed within 4 or 6 years, at least for the class of 2018.
Okay.
Does the top line include register, like, I mean, post-secondary intent? Okay, so that could be registered apprenticeship programs or certificates or.
There's different levels that students, when they're completing that survey, can indicate that they plan to go into. This is grouping it all into post-secondary intent, but they can indicate they planning to go to a 4-year, a 2-year, an apprenticeship, an internship. So yes, we do have that more granular data, which we publish on the education statistics page of our site. For this purposes of this chart, we group it all together into this post-secondary intent category.
So about 30% of students maybe don't really have like plans. Or they might have like a job or something.
The bulk of those students indicate they plan to go into employment, or they indicate they have an unknown. So they don't know what they're.
So if it's employment, then it's not counted towards post-secondary.
Correct.
Military would be in that group too.
Yes, and I believe roughly 2 to 3% of graduates indicate they intend to go to military, but yeah, we do have a spreadsheet out on the page where we report on each individual category, the number of graduates that intend to go into each sector.
Just to, oh, sorry, Brian.
Oh, go ahead.
Just before we leave the point about appropriately recognizing and celebrating military service, we have been working for now years with the Department of Defense to ensure that we have data that would allow us to represent in our post-secondary readiness indicator as a positive student outcome. Military service, and then we have some pilot states. I was not a pilot state, but we have pilot states running this year. So we hope to make that finally a reality in the coming years.
So I had a question about on the registered apprenticeship data. I guess in the program title, I don't see like dental, veterinary, airplane maintenance, hotels, restaurant program. Are those? I thought there were accredited apprenticeships for those when we paid some of our visits, like Kirkwood or.
So there's a huge number of programs that are available to sponsor registered apprenticeships. This is a relatively narrow look at just the class of 24 graduates and the top 10 programs.
Oh, okay. So you're not trying to list everybody.
Yeah, this is just the top 10 most common for the class of 24.
Yeah. So is this telling us that those ones I mentioned, there aren't even 10 people doing those? Is that what that means?
at least from the class of 2024, and
Okay.
those who immediately went into registered apprenticeship in that
Got it.
fall 24 time.
All right.
Chase.
Yeah.
Back to the prep trend lines report. So just a few main takeaways in this. For the top line on intent, you do see about a 10 percentage point decline since 2012 over the long term. The decline begins prior to the pandemic, but accelerates during the pandemic. And can you confirm that that's consistent with national trends?
Yes, it is. We did, the SLDS team also did a research study on declining college enrollment and did look at how the declines started before the pandemic and dug into all the details around that. And that is available on the statewide longitudinal data systems page of the department's website.
And then I think another main takeaway is comparing the first line to the second line, intent to enrollment. And you mentioned that the gap between intent to enrollment has not grown, but has not closed. It has remained consistent.
That's accurate. It's closed slightly from the mid 2010s when it was hovering around 12 to 13 percentage point or percent of the class. But yes, it's remained pretty consistent over this 15 for the level day.
And then I think just the last main takeaway is the next three lines, the bottom three lines. So we see for persistence, we're up 6 percentage points in the long term since 2012 persistence to the second year, but the 4 and 6 year completion rate has been steady. So we're getting to second year, but 4 and 6 year completion rate has not meaningfully increased.
Yes, and with the persistence data here, I do want to emphasize that this isn't the percent of students who enrolled that persisted into the second year. This is the percent of total high school graduates who enrolled in the first year, then went on to enroll in the second year. So the actual persistence rates of those enrolled hovers around 85% from the first year to the second year. This is just looking at as the class as a whole, who's ending up in that second post-secondary education. All right. A couple more slides here. So as I mentioned earlier, the reports do break these outcomes out by student group. And so this slide looks at the percent of high school graduates who enrolled in the fall immediately following high school graduation by the student group for the 5 most recent graduating classes available, class of 2020 to 2024. And the majority of student groups follow a similar trend to the overall, with slight decreases over that time period. For example, to read this chart, the second chart in the top row, EL represents data for English learners. 38% of English learners enrolled in the fall immediately following high school graduation in the class of 2020. And that dropped to 34% in the class of 2024. So while the trends are generally similar, you do see that there are large gaps between different student groups. So students or English learners, students who are eligible for free reduced price lunch, students with disabilities who are represented in the bars labeled IEP, all have much lower enrollment rates than the total student population. There is one student population, Black or African American students did see their enrollment rates increase over this time period from 41% in the class of 2020 to 46% in the class of 2020. Then finally, so all this data that's in the post-secondary readiness reports looks at the outcomes, what happens to high school graduates after they leave high school. Some related data that we publish on the Iowa School Performance Profile site, which will be updated soon, looks at activities or experiences that students have while they're in high school, prior to high school graduation, that are preparing them for success after high school. And those are housed in the post-secondary readiness indicator of the Iowa School Performance Profiles, which is part of the redesigned unified school accountability system. Two component indicators, which we're showing state level data for on the slide, are the percent of students who participate in work-based learning while in high school, and the percent of students who earn college credit while in high school. And as you can see there, very large increase, particularly in the percent of students engaging in work-based learning while in high school. So the class of 23 seniors, there are 25.5% of that class who participated in a work-based learning experience while in high school. And that increased to 45% of the class of 2025 seniors. So almost a 20 percentage point increase over the span of 2 years. And then 69% of the class of 2023 seniors earned college credit while in high school, and that increased to 70% of the class of 2024, which is the most recent data. So it's just some.
Which kind of is interesting because you look at the college credit, 69 and 70%, and you go back to the line graph, it's about virtually the same.
Yes, and
except for those that enrolled within 1 year is what's 50-some%.
One thing that does impact, it's a relatively small number of students, but it's definitely increasing. There are an increasing number of students who are earning a community college award before they graduate from high school. Typically that's a certificate or a diploma, but it can be all the way up to an associate's degree. So some of those students end up enrolling in further post-secondary education after high school graduation. Some go straight into the workforce. We don't count those students who, in the enrollment rates, if they didn't show up in post-secondary after high school graduation, we don't count them in that first year enrollment. We do, however, if they earned a post-secondary or community college award prior to high school graduation, we do count those in the percentage of students who completed within 4 or 6 years. So we count that award. So there for a small percentage of students, and at that, it's in the single digits. I think it's was about 4% in the most recent graduating class were in something prior to high school graduation. A portion of those might have earned an award in high school and gone straight into the workforce. But yeah, it's a relatively small percent still.
Other questions or comments?
No one's more, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry, in the one, in the graph, in the line graph. If there are ones who maybe started in high school and then were able to complete in that 1 year and then didn't go back a second year, that would be counted in the 4 to.
Yes, they'd be counted in the 4 and the 6. If there was a student who completed an award from that first year, they would also be counted in the persistence line as well.
Okay, thank you.
Can you go to the last slide again, please?
Absolutely.
So within the work-based learning, significant increase experienced from 23 to 24 to 25. One important component is between 24 and 25 was the enactment of the rigorous definition of what is high-quality work-based learning. So there were reasonable assumptions that that might stay steady or decline because we were likely counting career-connected learning in years 23 and 24 that are not counted in 25 with this more rigorous definition. So career exploration activities, job shadows, really important career connected learning that needs to occur prior to work-based learning, but that is not high-quality work-based learning. And we have still seen an incredible increase in the class of 25. That is of just under 20 percentage points. It's over a 76% increase in just 2 years. So this is another huge, incredible celebration point for the state, for educators, for their employer partners, and for the students who are getting these life-changing work-based learning experiences.
Thank you for sharing that.
That's everything I have for you, unless you have any further questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda is item number 10. Red Barn Schoolhouse Facilities Progress. Barbara?
Good afternoon, everyone.
Afternoon.
Just a reminder from July State Board meeting, Red Barn was here asking for the 1-year delay in opening as they are able to do in the application process, and they were approved for that 1-year extension or delay in opening the Red Barn Schoolhouse. During that meeting, there was some discussion around facilities, that they had secured facilities, but now they are in negotiation for other facilities because that our original facilities fell through, and you requested an update on the facilities for September. So we have Red Barn representation here. Sharon Olmec is hopefully. Yep, I see her. Sharon Olmec is here to provide the information you requested regarding an update on facilities, and she may be joined by others, but I'm going to turn it over to Sharon.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to give you an update on the latest with the Red Barn Schoolhouse. We made some really good progress. If I could just point you to the first page after the title page, just to refresh your memory. The star on the map denotes where the Crescent City proper is. And this is a map in total of the Council Bluffs school district boundaries, of which Crescent was part of. But you can tell that whole blue area, then down below, that's where students have to go to school now. So we appreciate the opportunity to have a choice rural school for children because they're traveling about an hour to school. And they're all among like 4 different school districts. So I was supposed to have my colleague Sean Shea available to talk about the site options, but I don't see him on here, so I'm gonna leave it up. If you'd like me, I can introduce the site options and tell you where we are on those.
Yes, please.
Okay. So Sean had the McNeil site. Sean had been negotiating with the gentleman there, and he happened to die. And so we were dealing with his heirs, and that site is right central in Crescent and has about 3.5 acres, but the price they want is too high. There is an existing building we were hoping that we could use as an interim facility, but they want 700,000, and we just don't think it's worth that, given we have to still build a school. And then the second site option is the existing or the former Crescent Elementary School. Over the past 3 years, it's been shuttered. Over the last year, the Council Bluffs School District said they want to use it for a sports center, and it's been underutilized, and there has not been much activity there. Regardless, you still don't feel like the Council Bluffs School District is willing to sell that building. But it has 4.5 acres with it, and we want to exhaust that resource because it would be the most cost-effective option, and people in the area definitely would like to secure that school again. We did appear in front of, we reached out to the Council Bluffs School Board, and they would not put us on the agenda, but we did present in as far as public comment goes and our interest in the purchase of the school. And then the final site that's on there says Johnson, and if you look on the map, you see that it's, I mean, all these options are within a quarter mile of the existing school, which really is one of the reasons we want to go after the old school building. It's kind of counterproductive to have two schools next to each other. But if you look on the map, you can see there's a creek that runs between the Council Bluffs to the Johnson property. And then that's all wooded there as well. And then in between them is the Crescent City Park. So regardless of the site, if we end up at the old school or if we end up at the Johnson site, we have some really great trail systems there that we just need a little work. And the Johnson site is about 5 acres. It's 5 acres part of a total alfalfa field. It's just really rich. It has been left alone, not the alfalfa field, but the wooded area for 50 years. So it's got some really, really great wildlife in there. So the Johnson site is available for roughly $65,000 for 5 acres, which is a steal. And we have, as we noted, secured a temporary site with Hitchcock Nature Center, because as we know, it could take 1.5 years to get this school built. So we have just been hanging on to try to find out what the Council Bluffs School District selects to do. Our goal is to have a final purchase by October 1st.
Your funding going for the purchase of land, and you have to build a building or renovate? I feel we've made good progress on that. We have an existing relationship with Building Hope, who hasn't funded anything yet in Iowa, but they have been completely, we were all set to close before the other lease didn't happen, and they're still a willing partner. In addition, we have on Tuesday our second meeting with the Lakin Foundation, and this is right up their alley. And then we've also been working closely with Security National Bank. So feel good about the financing end of things. We just need to finalize the site. It sounds like the Hitchcock Nature Center is the fail-safe if nothing else comes through.
Yes, well, the Johnson's, it's agreed that we can have that site for that price. So that's our, but then as far as a temporary site, yes, Hitchcock.
So if you get the site and if you get the funding, how long do you think it's going to take to construct a suitable building that meets code for Iowa schools?
Yeah. We're thinking the longest would be 1.5 years.
Okay, so then you're looking at using Hitchcock in between times?
Correct.
And is there a nature center up to code?
Oh yeah, it's 15 acres. It's stellar.
I was talking about the building.
Oh, the building, yes, it is up to code. They purchased that ski area about 2 years ago and brought everything up to code.
For school?
It's yes.
Other questions for?
So are you definitely gonna be in the Hitchcock Nature Center, I guess, for the fall 2026? You're gonna start.
We're hoping it's just a 3-month interim thing, but yeah, we are, they're having a short-term lease drawn up so that we have access to that site. It's really about, we want to go full force and, you know, get a foundation as soon as possible. We've already been working with architects. So, it's really more of a, as soon as the site is finalized, we're ready to rock and roll. Honestly, it's really more the holdup with the Council Bluffs School District. You know, the other site's ready, but it's such a, you know, it's already ready to go. There's a lot of benefits to the existing school.
Okay,
So when would you, would you know by the end of September that the former school is not going to work?
We told the school board that, yes, September 29th is our drop dead date from them.
And then McNeil's probably not happening.
Right,
So you temporarily be at Hitchcock, but then Johnson is the place.
correct.
And if it takes a year and a half to build Johnson, would it be more like fall of, well,
I said, that's a worst case scenario. and that's, yeah. Our
year from now? It's more like the following, you're not gonna move in the middle of the year, I was.
we would move, the goal would be to move in January.
Okay, all right. I didn't know you could move.
Yeah.
well, I'd like to have a follow-up update when there's news to share.
Maybe, well, it sounds like they would know something by the end of this month, so maybe at our October.
It doesn't have to come from.
Yeah.
It can come from Barbara or whomever.
Okay,
It doesn't have to be.
happy to. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
So if the McNeil site does work, then would you still need the temporary?
It
install-
has a building that we could use as a temporary, but honestly, when Sean Shea went and looked at it last Sunday, he said it's just not worth renovating. It's just too much. Would be needed to make it up to code standards for a school. So I'd say that one's completely off the table.
Okay. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Best
Thank
wishes.
you. Thank
Yeah.
you. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Is there anything else for the good of the cause today? Barbara, thank you for your time. If nothing else, we're adjourned.
You, Ashley.